Everyone, thank you for joining us. This is Board President Juan Armenta. I am hereby calling the meeting for today to order. If we could have a roll call, please.
Good morning. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Awesome. Charles Alexander.
Present.
Juan Armenta.
Present.
Jennifer Callquist. Sonia Early.
Present.
Jed Grant.
I'm present.
Randy Hawkins.
Here.
Diego Nzunza.
Present.
Ms. Gompers, does that complete the roll call?
Yes, that completes the roll call.
All right, it seems that we have a quorum then. And I think this might be the first time we have an international presence, I don't know, from Jed Grant, who is in the Middle East and is joining us through technology today. So that's great. So the next order of business on the agenda would be number 3. That would be consideration of the approval of the minutes from the February 8th, 2021 board minutes. Of course, those minutes are in the packet, and I assume everybody has had a chance to look. So are there any comments, additions, corrections from any of the board members as to those minutes? Okay, hearing no comments on them, we should probably put this to a vote for adoption. Or do I have to do public comment first? Very well. So, Madam Moderator, if you would open the channel for public comment, please.
This is the moderator, and at the direction of the board, I have opened the Q&A panel. If you would like to request public comment, please click on the question mark within the square located in the lower right-hand portion of your screen and type, "I would like to make a comment." All requests for comments will be addressed in the order they are received. You will be provided 3 minutes and given a 30-second warning. With that, I will pause momentarily to allow individuals time to access this feature. At this time, it does not appear we've received any requests for public comment. Would you like me to close this feature?
Yes, let's close that feature, please, Madam Moderator. And then, thank you. And Ms. Gompers, if you could call for the vote, please.
Okay.
Actually, I don't. I'll make a motion to approve the minutes. I don't know if anyone's done that. This is Jed Grant.
Yes, please. Thank you, Jed.
And I'd like to
Thank you for putting that
second.
out. Okay. So we have I believe that was a motion from Mr. Grant and a second from Vice President Early. Is that right?
That's correct. Thank you.
Okay. So please, Ms. Gompers, if we could call the vote.
Charles Alexander.
Aye.
Juan Armenta.
Aye.
Jennifer Callquist.
Aye.
Sonia Early.
Aye.
Jed Grant.
Aye.
Randy Hawkins.
I'm not sure if I'm a voting member, but I think I don't vote on
get clarity, but I would say yes. Someone can clarify me later whether I actually vote on anything.
Diego Inzunza.
Aye.
And that concludes the voting for the minutes.
Very well. The vote having been cast, the adoption of the prior minutes is passed. Will, is this a good time to comment on Doctor's question about whether he is a voting member or not?
Yes, this is Board Counsel Will McGuire. Are you able to hear me? I was having some audio issues before.
I can hear you fine. Doctor, did you catch that comment?
Yes, and I know I'm not a voting member, but I don't know if there's anything and I appreciate the fact that I asked about entities and I'm able to speak. I'm just getting clarity on the minutes.
Okay, terrific.
Yeah, and I heard the question. I'm having a little bit of trouble hearing and also speaking. So I have technical difficulties today, but of course, Dr. Hawkins is correct. He's the ex officio member according to our Practice Act, which means he attends and we value his input and discussion. But on the actual items, including minutes, he does not need to vote or is not able to vote. He can certainly share whatever other wisdom or even edits to the minutes should he have any or any other type item. As a side note, I'm hearing a lot of echo. I don't know if other people are experiencing that or it's just me. I tried signing in and signing back out, but don't know.
This is the moderator, and it does appear we are having some. So if I could please ask the panel, if you are not speaking, to please ensure that you have your microphone muted. And if you have the ability or are connected through multiple devices, to turn down the volume slightly to assist with that feedback.
This is Jed Grant. If I could just make one comment for the moderator. I don't know if it's just me, but you're very low audio. I can barely hear you.
I will ensure that I adjust that. I was trying to assist with the feedback that was occurring.
Yeah, the moderator in particular is rather quiet, but now I'm not hearing the echo, so that's good.
Okay, very well. Number 4 on the agenda is public comments on items not on the agenda. So I suppose then, Miss Moderator, we open the channel for public comment for items not under the agenda, please.
This is the moderator, and at the direction of the board, I have opened for question and answer or public comment. If you would like to request public comment, for your reference being displayed on the screen are instructions. Please click on the question mark within the square located in the lower right-hand portion. You will be provided 3 minutes and given a 30-second warning. I will pause momentarily to allow individuals time to access this feature. At this time, we've not received any requests. Would you like me to close this feature?
Yes, Madam Moderator, that would be great. Terrific. Thank you.
You're welcome. Feature closed.
Okay, moving right along to number 5, that is the swearing in of the reappointed board member. That would be me, and I understand that Vice President Early will be administering that oath.
Yes. If you wouldn't mind, if you would like to turn on your video, that was perfect. I would like to offer the oath of office to our President of the Physician Assistant Board, Mr. Juan Armenta. President Armenta, if you'd like to raise your right hand and repeat after me. I state your name.
I, Juan Armenta,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States
that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California
and the Constitution of the State of California
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
to the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California,
to the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California,
that I take this obligation freely without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion,
that I take this pardon me, that I take this oath freely without any evasion.
I will repeat it, that
Thank
I
you.
take this obligation freely
That I will take this obligation freely
without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion,
without any, I'm having trouble. Could you break that down, please, again, Sonia?
sure, without any mental reservation
Without any mental reservation
or purpose of evasion,
or purpose of evasion,
and that I will well
and that I will well
and faithfully discharge
and faithfully discharge
the duties upon which I am about to enter.
the duties upon which I'm about to enter.
Congratulations.
Thank you, Ms. Early. I'm sorry I butchered your attempt to swear me in, but at least we got it done. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Congrats.
Okay, thank you. All right, I'm going to stop video here. Okay, and the next item are reports, starting with 6A. That would be the president's report. And let me move to that item. As in their previous meeting, we noted in the president's report the extension of waivers. Those waivers have been extended yet again and valid until July 1st or until the state of emergency ceases to exist, whichever is sooner. So they may continue for some time. As the materials show, they suspend many of the obstacles to reactivating a retired, inactive, or canceled license. They do not extend to licenses that have been subject to discipline or suspended because of discipline. So that is what these waivers do. The complete text is in the materials. There's another point I wish to raise, and these waivers clearly demonstrate the governor's intent to bring all hands on deck to attack the pandemic. And it brings to attention a call I received from the president of COPPA relative to PAs being able to administer vaccines, actually disallowed to do so in one county, even though RNs and EMTs were allowed to do so. I don't think anybody would argue that seemed to make a lot of sense, that PAs were not qualified, but there was some disconnect. I reached out to Congressman Raul Ruiz, who's one of the two members of Congress that are MDs from the California delegation and the only ER doctor. He advised that he would reach out to the Congress members in the affected districts and encouraged me to advise the CAPA to reach out to state and local officials. And I'm not surprised, given the quality of people they have there, they were already on top of that. So the problem was quickly resolved, but it raises two issues. First of all, thanking the CAPA members and elected officials who weighed in on that to square that away right away. But also, I think it's a good opportunity for us to understand as a board, and indeed our executive staff, is to be aware of these communication problems in the future, so that if we ever face another similar type of emergency where we need all medical professionals on the front lines, we don't encounter these types of problems. Finally, I would like to report that in keeping with counsel from past presidents Jed Grant and Bob Sachs, Vice President Early and I have continued to engage with CEO Rosanna Khan via telephone for regularly scheduled phone conferences to update us on operations and other matters of interest so they can be reported to the board. So that concludes my report. Pardon me here, I'm struggling using two different mouse devices to get to. Okay, so the next item is 6B, the Executive Officers Report. That would be Rosanna Khan. So Rosanna, I'll ask you to go ahead and take the floor, and I will mute myself. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. I hope you're able to hear me. I'm going to start off with the pandemic response. The board's office is operational and open to the public during the COVID-19 pandemic. Board staff continues to be on a rotational telework schedule and are able to provide essential services to applicants, licensees, and consumers. The next update I have is on personnel. Effective March 8, 2021, Jasmine Dillon filled the legislative and regulatory analyst position. Ms. Dillon received her bachelor's degree in business administration from California State University, Chico. Ms. Dillon later attended and graduated from University of the Pacific McGeorge School of Law with a concentration in business and tax law. While at McGeorge, she worked as a legal clerk. Ms. Dillon joined state service in September 2020 as a staff services analyst for the medical board. During her time there, Ms. Dillon ensured the medical board complied with all phases of the administrative hearing process and performed complex and analytical duties requiring a thorough knowledge of the Business and Professions Code, the Administrative Procedure Act, and regulations of the medical board. The next staff that has joined the physician assistant board is Margarita Soto, which she took that position effective May 3rd, 2021, and has filled the licensing analyst position behind Julie Caldwell. Ms. Soto received her bachelor's degree in child development and education from California State University, Sacramento. Ms. Soto joined state service with the medical board in 2017 as an office assistant in the cashiering unit, later promoting to an office technician in the same unit. Ms. Soto was briefly cross-trained in the executive office before eventually transferring to the enforcement team as a consumer services analyst, where she worked since March 2020. Please join me in welcoming both Ms. Dillon and Ms. Soto to the PAP team. The next item I have is the recruitment efforts are underway to fill the vacant staff services manager 1 SSM 1 position. As you may recall, this position was approved through the budget change proposal. This is the board's very first approved SSM 1 position. An essential component to the mission success is providing the board with a proper organization structure based on state-approved management to staff ratios. Adding the SSM 1 position will properly align the board's management to staff ratio with Cal HR staffing allocation guidelines, which recommends one SSM 1 should manage 3 to 5 professional level staff. The SSM 1 would directly manage and supervise the licensing and enforcement programs, which would comprise of 5 analysts and 1 office technician. The SSM 1 would also the SSM 1 would also be required to provide general management level support to all board activities and would report directly to the executive officer. Update on information technology. Effective February 26, 2021, the board migrated to the DCA server. As a result, board member and staff email extensions have changed to @dca.ca.gov. I would like to thank the DCA Office of Information Services team for the smooth transition and providing assistance with onboarding. To better serve consumers, licensees, and applicants, board staff continues to work with DCA Office of Information Services Internet team to review and redesign the board's website. The new design and layout of the website will streamline the information presented and make it more user-friendly. Board staff anticipates the website redesign to be completed by the end of the year. Board staff continues to utilize Facebook and Twitter social media platforms to maximize outreach and communication. This concludes my update. If you have any questions, please let me know.
Great, thank you. Excellent, Rosanna. Let's see, the next item would be 6C, board activity reports. Ms. Caldwell, you are up first with licensing, please.
Good morning. So the first thing I wanted to discuss was just that last time we met, President Armento had requested that the board update our website to include information and verbiage for our the students that were graduating from programs, to let them know to not apply any earlier, or to give them a date range of when to apply. 45 to 60 days is what we currently have posted to the website. So that has been completed per your request. The first report, Ms. Moderator, if we can put that up on the website, would be a licensing population by type.
Do you have a page?
We don't have a page number. Hold on
52,
just a
page
second.
52.
Thank you. Thanks, Rosanna. There we go. So as of April 13th, 2021, we have 21,118 licensees, of which 14,599 are current and 28 are inactive. Next report is the summary of licensing activity. Okay, so between January 1st, 2021 and March 31st, 2021, we had a total of 417 initial applications received and 363 approved. And we had 1,724 licensees renew their license. And we can move forward to the pending application workload. If you scroll down just a little bit on this one, so that we can see that pie, the verbiage at the top is not really needed. Oh, there we go. It's just me. There we go. My screen. So currently we have this one depicts upon the desk age. So once an application is received, it starts the application age process. And then when it's assigned to an individual, it starts the desk age process. Currently on the desk age, we have 154 applications within the 30-day range, 51 applications within the 31 to 60-day range, 38 applications 61 to 90 days, and then 111 in the 91-day plus. So we have total, right as of this day, we have, as of April 21st, 2021, we had 354 applications. And then the next screen is also the pending application workload. And that shows you the application age. So it will differ slightly depending upon when the application was received. Most of those meaning online applications, we may have been a regularly scheduled day off before we can actually assign them to a staff member. And so the application age may be slightly higher, maybe a day, 1 to 3 days, depending upon how long it takes staff to go ahead and assign that to a staff member. And then the next report is licensing performance measures. And that just shows you where we're at as far as processing time. So we're currently just the internal processing time that the board is shooting for an application to, once it's received either by mail or online, is to complete the initial application review is 30 days. So we're right outside, right a little bit above that at 32 days. Any questions?
Julie, this is Jed. I have a question. If Mr. President, if I may be recognized.
Yes, please proceed, Mr. Grant.
Julie, do you anticipate that as you're adding some staff for licensing that these times will come down?
You mean the 32-day processing time?
Well, that as well as some of the ones that have the longer count from the previous couple of slides.
So the desk age and application age, those are overall counts for how long it's taking an application to, from the initial reception to the issuance of the license. It doesn't necessarily mean that that's how long it's taking us to review them. It means that's how long they're in the system for. And we have quite a few applicants who've applied, and it's capturing everybody who's applied and hasn't paid. It's capturing people who have applied and haven't met. I have a large amount of individuals who've applied, and for whatever reason, and we are reaching out to them. If they submitted an application in 2020, we're sending them emails saying, at this point in time, you still have these outstanding items. So it's counting everybody who hasn't paid, who hasn't passed the PANCE exam, and we have maybe about a dozen individuals who have taken the PANCE and failed. So they have to, they're required to wait a minimum period with the NCCPA before they can actually retest. Then we have a large volume of people who have not completed or complied with all the requirements, even though we're reaching out by email to let them know and provide them updates. So we have a lot of outstanding requirements that have not been met by individual applicants. So that's what the overall, that accounts for that 91-day plus that's currently at a desk age of 111 and an application age of 132. So that gives you a little bit more background as far as it's the overall timeline of when they applied. It doesn't calculate the milestone marker that we set on an application once it's reviewed, which is what is the 30-day time period that we're trying to meet, is it stops the internal clock for the board's responsibility and places it back on the applicant. It doesn't affect these reports. So these are actual days from when we receive the application, and it stops once the license is either withdrawn or issued or expired.
Thank you for that explanation. I appreciate it. I'm still, maybe you said it and I missed it, but do you anticipate that any of these metrics will be lower as we add licensing staff?
The only processing time that's reported on the licensing performance measures, I would anticipate that one getting closer to the target of 20 days. But the information that's reported on the pending application workload, that is 100% dependent on the applicant and how long it takes for them to comply with the requirements in order for their license to be issued.
Great. Okay, thank you. Appreciate that explanation. Obviously, we can't control it if people don't send in the required documents or comply with licensing requirements. But I think, for me anyway, I think it's important to know that we're doing as much as we can to speed the process on our end, which sounds like what you're doing. So thank you for that. I appreciate that.
Sure. Just one more helpful piece of information on the pending application workload, which if you can scroll back to page 1 of that, moderator, there's 2 pages. The first pending application workload, it's the one with the pie, and on the right-hand side, it'll say desk age. Perfect, that one. So if you see on the left-hand side, it says unassigned 49. That accounts for a large volume of people who have applied online, have not paid the fees. And we do reach out to them to let them know that their application has not been processed. And those are actually captured within that 91-day plus range. So that does account for a lot of people. I just wanted to point that out, that we are reaching out to individuals who are applying and not paying the fees to let them know that we can't process their application without payment. And we are also reaching out to individuals that have been in the drawer for longer than 4 months without receiving any additional requirements, just to let them know that their application is still pending and they do have a year to complete the application or it will expire. And then we provide them with an update on what's missing.
Okay, great. Thank you for that explanation.
Sure.
Julie, may I ask a question? This is
Sure.
Sonia. I have a quick question in terms of, I heard you mention that it's taken a little bit longer for the graduates who haven't passed their PANCE examination. Would it be better to notify the schools to maybe have the students start the application once they've taken the test? I mean, that I know that we normally give them 30 to 45 days, prior to that, but would that help decrease the time frame?
I think the only time frame that is a concern is what the time frame that's reported in the licensing performance measures, which would be the processing time to complete the initial application review. I would not want to give an applicant who's just graduating from school. I wouldn't want to steer them wrong as far as applying when they're taking the PANCE exam, because they may or may not still have a 30-day waiting period. I'm hoping to reduce that down to around the 20-day range now that we have 2 licensing analysts. So they should be reviewed, if not licensed, within a few weeks of applying. But I think it's probably good to leave it at that 45 to 60-day window, and that way they can go ahead and maybe apply prior to completing the program and taking the PANCE exam, and then we have an opportunity to get them reviewed and provide them with an update. So all we're waiting on is getting the results of their PANCE exam, and we can issue that license within a few days of receiving the results.
Awesome. Great. Thank you so much.
Sure. Well, that concludes my report if we don't have any other questions.
Great. Thank you very much, Ms. Caldwell.
Sure.
Very well. Let's move on to 6C2, which is the complaint component. Ms. Melendez, please, if you would proceed with your report.
Good morning, everyone. I'll be providing you a section of the enforcement activity reported regards to the complaints for the third quarter. We have recently updated our report, and we will be focusing on the third quarter of January 1st to March 31st of this year. Excuse me, can you hear me? Okay. This report.
If you could speak up just a little bit, that would be great. I can barely hear you.
Okay. So can you hear me now?
Perfect.
Okay, thank you. As you can see, we have also provided stats from previous quarters. This report will also show how we are trending this fiscal year to the last fiscal year. So we'll start off with complaint volume. We have received 76 complaints. We received one complaint regarding conviction or an arrest. Intake, we have 63 cases that were assigned to the desk analyst. There are 0 that are pending intake. Complaints and investigations. There are 17 complaints that were referred for investigation. 82 complaints that are complaints that are investigation and closed. We have 125 complaints that are pending at the desk analyst. We have 237 investigations that are pending at the field. Investigation aging. the average age of pending investigations are 251 days. Investigations are there are 35 cases that are investigations that are over 8 months old. Going on to the following chart, um, as you can see, this chart it's providing you information on the type of complaints that we have and the source of where they came from. Please let me know if you have any questions in regards to these to this chart.
Mr. President, this is Jed. May I be recognized?
Please go ahead, Mr. Grant.
Armando, those charts are great. Thank you.
Yes.
I like the change thing on the side was really helpful to sort of see what's going on in terms of complaints. On this particular chart, the multicolor one that we have here, also very helpful.
Sure.
I just was wanted to make sure that I understand correctly. This is from June 1st of 2020 until the current date. Is that correct?
We're focusing on the second chart, correct?
Well, the one that's on the screen right now, yeah, with all the colors on the
Oh, yes,
multicolor
yes.
chart.
Yes.
Okay, so it looks
Yes.
like there's been about half as if this is from June 1st, we're pretty close to June 1st now. And it looks like there's
It's
about half as
July
many
1.
complaints. Oh, it's July 1. Okay.
July 1, and we're already in the third quarter, which is January 1st through March 31st, and then we have one more quarter left for fiscal year 2020, 2021.
So this report is, I guess what the question, I'm sorry, that was a very poorly phrased question. I guess what I'm asking is how, in terms of how many complaints we have here, the lower number, as we're in the fourth, if I understand correctly, in the fourth quarter right now, wondering if you had any information for us as to what you think might be the reason for the lower number of complaints, if I'm understanding the time frame correctly.
The lower number of complaints that can be attributed to lower office visits from consumers. So usually, since consumers aren't going to see their physician assistants, there's been a trend of lower amount of complaints that were filed in the last fiscal year.
Okay, thank you. And my final question is, have you seen any complaints come in related to telemedicine since we've seen a pretty dramatic increase in the use of telemedicine since the COVID pandemic started?
I couldn't. Well, a lot of the patients are being seen right now via telemedicine, via their phones or tablets, and exactly the amount of those type of cases I couldn't tell you, because I know that they have been trending. I know I've been seeing them, that because they'll mention in their complaint that they've done that, but sometimes they're not mentioned that they initially seen their physician in that manner. So I won't know until after we're halfway down the complaint, and then they might mention it to me that that's how they initially saw their PA.
Okay, thank you. I guess kind of where I'm going with that is if in these categories you've noticed that there's any increase in any particular category that's related to telemedicine.
No, I would say no.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate that.
Yes, this is Juan Armenta. I'd like to follow up on Mr. Grant's comment. So, Armando, if I understand the green chart correctly with the year-to-year change, assuming that each of these quarters are roughly linear, because we don't have the fourth quarter in there, the number that we would expect to see if everything is the same is year-to-year change minus 25%, right? Because we're missing one quarter, right?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay, so when we see radical downward departures, like 61% on complaints, investigations, complaint pending on desk, 68% convictions, well, that's a small number, so that's not really a good metric, but 61% complaints pending at desk analyst, 55 investigations over 5 months old. Those are significant downward trends, correct? Even if assuming quarter four is going to stay relatively linear.
Yes, I would say so. Because the percentages are high, and that's what's trending right now when we compare it year to year.
Okay, and then I think Jed brings up a cogent point. It doesn't sound like that you have any statistical analysis or column to indicate, which complaints may be telemedicine. But I think Mr. Grant's point is an excellent one. I think we can expect telemedicine to continue in the future for some time, no matter if this pandemic wanes somewhat in the coming quarters. I think it's fair to expect that this is going to be a practice modality we're going to see more frequently. So maybe it's time to think about how you might track or analyze those complaints that are related to telemed, because it is something I think that as a board we would want to look at to see how it's impacting the quality of administration of care.
Understand. We can work with that with staff and work on obtaining that stat.
And Mr. Grant, does that dovetail into your concerns looking forward?
Yes, sir. That's kind of where I was going with it, is just to look at if we were tracking telemedicine to see sort of which of those categories telemedicine complaints on the multicolored one there. If we had complaints related to telemedicine, which category they would most fall into, and if there was something that we could look at from a public safety perspective with telemedicine to advise licensees or the public about in terms of ensuring public safety through telemedicine. So I think the basis of good decisions is good data. And so I appreciate your suggestion to start collecting some data on the relationship of telemedicine to complaints. So I think that would be great.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Grant. So I think that's something, Armando, we could maybe you could begin to think about that for our next meeting and give us some advice on how that might be done from your perspective to break down that data.
Yes, we'll definitely be working on that.
Okay, great. Does that conclude your report, Mr. Melendez?
Yes, at this time, this concludes my report. And if you have any further questions, I'm available for any questions at this time.
So, board members, any other questions on for Mr. Melendez on this area? Very well. Hearing none, thank you, Mr. Melendez, for your report. And we will go ahead and proceed with 6C3, which is the discipline report from Ms. Hayden. Christina, if you would, please.
Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
You appear to be coming through okay. Yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you. So I'm going to present the discipline statistic report. As with the complaint report, it's a new layout. The report has the previous fiscal year totals. The current fiscal year is broken down by quarters, by the year-to-date totals, and the trending up and down numbers. Today, I'm going to focus on the third quarter of the current fiscal year, which is from January 1st to March 31st. The suspensions, we have one cease practice order that was issued, one interim suspension order that was issued. For the Office of the Attorney General transmittals, we have 12 cases that were initiated. The year-to-date total cases is 22. There are 31 pending cases, and the average age of pending cases is 326 days. We move on to the formal actions filed, withdrawn, and dismissed. This quarter, we've had 4 accusations filed. The year-to-date total accusations is 14. For the administrative outcomes and final order, we have 1 license application that was denied. The year-to-date total is 2. We have 3 licensees that have been placed on probation. The total for the year-to-date is 9. We've had 1 public reproval, 1 license revocation, 2 surrenders. The year-to-date total is 8. For the citation and fine, we've had 1 issued this year. It was resolved and the fine was paid. I do want to mention that the majority of the citations that are issued, that the board issues, are for CME audits. And as you're aware, there's a CME waiver in place. So this amount is significantly lower than last year. This concludes my report. Does anyone have any questions?
Very well. Hearing no questions. Thank you, Ms. Hayden, for your report. We will move then to agenda item 6C4, the probation report. Let me see here. So that goes to Ms. Fong. So please, if you would proceed with that report, the probation report. Thank you.
Thank you, President. Good morning, everyone. Okay, so for quarter 3 of fiscal year 2020-21, 3 licensees entered probation and 2 licensees completed probation. And as of March 31st, the board has 64 licensees on probation. Of these, 50 are active probationers and 14 are tolled. Tolling occurs due to the probationer not practicing in California, or the probationer is living out of state and is not on active probation with that state's licensing authority. During this quarter, there was 1 violation of probation for testing positive for a controlled substance, not legally authorized, and the board issued a cease practice order. And this concludes the probation report. Does anyone have any questions?
Very well. Hearing no questions on that report, if you could move on to the diversion report, please.
Thank you. Thank you. So for the third quarter, for the board's diversion program, we have 1 participant complete the program, and as of March 31st, there are a total of 3 active participants in the Maximus program. And this concludes my report for the diversion program.
Thank you, Ms. Vong. I recall in past meetings, there were some questions about, and I can't remember who raised them, about the Maximus program. Is there any further discussion along those lines from the board members, or can we consider this component concluded?
I think, Mr. President, this is Jed. The only question I had last time was whether or not any of our probationers were having trouble complying with the terms of their probation due to the COVID pandemic. And I think the report was that no one had reported any problems in compliance secondary to the pandemic. So I just might ask Christy if that's still the case, if there's been any reported problems complying with probation due to COVID-19.
Christy, if you could speak to that, please.
I'm sorry, I thought I was on mute. Yes, you're correct. Last quarter, there were no compliance issues. This quarter, there's no compliance issues relating to COVID. The one violation is due to testing positive for a controlled substance not authorized. Has nothing to do with COVID, and so currently there's no compliance issues.
Great, thank you for giving us that information.
Very well. Okay, are there any other questions on this report?
Yes, President Menta, I do have a question for Christy. Christy, regarding the fiscal quarter, you mentioned that there's one person that completed the Maximus training. And so for the remaining 3 individuals, where are they in the process? And when did they start?
For the 3 individuals in the program, they are in the recovery process. As far as when they started, I do not have the information for each individual, but I can most certainly provide that for the next.
Oh, no problem. I was just wondering, was it, from how many years or like previous years? Because I know that you give this year from January, so I didn't have a good idea how long they've been in the program or what the average time that they're normally in the program. Thank you.
It all depends on their probation term and also their compliance. But I would say that the 3 that's remained, they've been in the program for about 2 years at least. All 3.
Okay, great. Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice President Early. Any other comments? Very well, hearing none. Thank you, Ms. Vaughn, for your reporting. That would conclude the item 6. Mr. McGuire, there is no public comment required for this component, or is there?
Actually, all items technically require public comment, so it's always worth checking to see if anyone has it, although I know we have fairly few attendees today.
Very well, we'll go ahead and stick with the process to make sure we're doing it correctly. Madam Moderator, if you would open the channel to determine if there are any public comments on agenda item 6.
This is the moderator, and at the direction of the board, I have opened the Q&A panel. If you would like to request public comment, please click on the question mark within the square located in the lower right-hand portion of your screen. Type "I would like to make a comment." All comments will be addressed in the order they are received. You will be provided 3 minutes and given a 30-second warning. I will now pause momentarily to allow individuals time to access this feature. At this time, we've received no requests for public comment. Would you like me to close this feature?
Yes, please. Thank you, Madam Moderator.
You're welcome. Feature's closed.
Very well. That moves us on to item 7. Director's update, DCA staff. Rosanna, who provides that update?
It will be Ryan Perez.
Mr. Perez, please, if you would go ahead and take the floor and inform us.
Of course. Good morning, Board President Armenta and other board members. I'm Ryan Perez with the Office of Board and Bureau Relations at the Department of Consumer Affairs, and thank you for allowing me this opportunity to provide a department update to the board. Congratulations, President Armenta, on your reappointment, and we all thank you for your continued service. COVID-19 has affected every aspect of our work for more than a year now. Thank you to Executive Officer Khan and board staff who have been working so very hard to maintain excellent customer service throughout these challenging times. DCA offices will remain open with preventative measures to safeguard the health and safety of our employees and visitors. Boards and bureaus are looking ahead to what changes can be made permanent for efficiency and employee well-being, such as telework and eliminating paper processes. I encourage all members and the public to visit DCA's COVID-19 webpage for updates and resources on the state's reopening plan, public health guidance, vaccinator resources, vaccine distribution, and more. Along those lines, DCA is receiving many questions about when and how boards will be able to meet again in person. And while I don't have a definitive answer today, I would like to offer some clarification. As you all know, the ability of the board to meet remotely is tied to the governor's executive orders and the state of emergency. When these are lifted, the board will be required to follow all aspects of the Open Meetings Act, including publicly noticed and accessible locations. There is pending legislation, however, on the matter that will make the most relevant provisions of the governor's executive orders permanent. AB 885, for example, by Assemblymember Quirk is one such bill we're tracking. But we do not know yet when any of this will happen or if any changes to the law will occur before the state of emergency is lifted. So DCA will do all it can to assist the boards and bureaus to transition safely and with enough time to plan for in-person meetings should that be the case. One of our top priorities in board and bureau relations is appointments, and I would like to provide a brief overview on that. Currently, the board has 3 vacancies, 2 public members appointed by the Senate Rules Committee and the governor, and a licensed member appointed by the governor. DCA, the appointing authorities, and Executive Officer Khan all share in the goal of a fully seated, diverse, and effective board. And kudos to Executive Officer Khan, who has done exceptionally well in engaging with us early and often to ensure progress is made on the matter. That being said, if any members know of any great candidates or if any members of the public attending the meeting are interested in serving, please find the link titled Board Member Resources on DCA's homepage to apply for an appointment. For current board members, 2020 is a mandatory sexual harassment prevention training year, which means all employees and board members are required to complete the training during this year. As a reminder, newly appointed and reappointed members are required to attend board member orientation training within a year of appointment or reappointment. And DCA is excited about the new and improved training that has been developed, which has been updated based on board member feedback and requests. The next offering of this training will be held on June 23rd via WebEx. And to register, go to the DCA Board Member Resource Center on DCA's main page. As always, Board and Bureau Relations is here to help, but if there's anything that we can do to assist, please reach out. This concludes my presentation, and I will hand it back over to Board President Armenta. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Mr. Perez. Always good to have the DCA, of course, weigh in and let us know what is going on. So thank you for your report. Let's see. So in keeping with our requirements, Madam Moderator, if you would open the channel to see if there are any public comments on this part of the agenda.
At the direction of the board, I have opened the Q&A panel. If you would like to request public comment, for reference, being displayed on your screen are instructions to request public comment. I will pause momentarily to allow individuals time to access this feature. At this time, we have not received any requests for public comment. Would you like me to close this feature?
Yes, please. Thank you, Madam Moderator.
You're very welcome. Feature's closed.
All right, excellent. Just as a heads up, I think after the budget item 8 budget update, I think we will take a good time to take a little 10-minute comfort break for everybody. So if we could proceed with number 8, our DCA budget analyst. Please, you would take the floor and advise us on the budget.
Good morning. Can everybody hear me?
You seem to be coming through loud and clear. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning, President Armenta, Executive Officer Khan, board members, and members of the public. My name is Paul McDermott. I am from the Budgets Office of the Department of Consumer Affairs, and I am the budget analyst in charge of managing the board's projected budget and projected revenue and fund condition. Today, we're going to be talking about the expenditures and the revenues and the fund condition in relation to what we've had over the last quarter. And I'm happy to say that since we last met, and we'll go through the numbers, since we last met, that the direction of the expenditures and the directions of the revenues is intact with what we saw a quarter ago. So I'm very happy about that. And the first document we're going to be looking at is called the fund condition. And the way we read the fund condition is left to right and then top to bottom. Left to right, we're going to look at prior year, which is 1920, then current year, and then we can look at projected years. But what I want to bring to attention, what we discussed last meeting, I just want to reiterate, and for anybody who was not there, some key points in the prior year. If you look about halfway down, first of all, what a fund condition tells us, if anybody who's a business owner, I want to know my beginning balance is, I want to know what my revenues are, I want to know what my expenses are, and at the very end, I want to know what my final tally is for the year. So it's money coming in, money going out, and where we stand at the end of the year. So in the first column, we do have the prior year of 2019-20. And if you look about 3/4 of the way down in the revenue streams, you'll see interest from interfund loans. And we discussed this last time, where we did have a loan, a general fund loan that came back. And that $92,000 that you see there is the interest that we had on that loan that came back in 2019-2020. The loan was paid back. It was a $1.5 million loan, and you'll see that in the next section down. And so I just want to point out that we did have interest on a loan that was paid back, and the loan was paid back and accounted for. So pretty good return on the investment to the general fund. With that said, what I wanted to do is look at current year, which is 2020-21. These are projected numbers in this column. So based on the revenue streams as I'm tracking them up through FMO8, if you look at all the fees that we look at, these are your different fees, your different revenue streams. I'm projecting to bring in about $2.6 million. We have no loan going out, nothing going out from here. So when it's all said and done, I look at the beginning balance up top, plus the revenue coming in. We've got a total net resources of about $77.5 million. That's your money coming in. The next section down is going to be your expenses, and this is what we expect you to spend through the year. For the current year, we're looking at $2.7 million with your pro rata costs and everything totaling, as you look down, a total of $2.8 million. So when I take the revenue streams coming in, I take the expenses going out, I'm projecting a fund balance at the bottom to be about $4.6 million. That balance equates to about 18.4 months, a little over 18 months of money in reserve. And if you recall, we talked about this. If everything just kind of falls apart and then there's no revenue streams coming in, we've got about 18 months in reserves for the board to operate before we have to adjust anything. And the question came up with a pandemic, something like this, be an issue that we'd have to look at. And this could be something where the revenue streams dry up and we still have 18 months to operate as a board. When we look at the strength of the months in reserves, we like to be anywhere between 6 and 12 months. So obviously we're very solid here at 18 months. We're trending negative, which is fine because the max we want in the months in reserves is going to be about 24. So we're trending negative, but we're perfectly fine because if you look at as we project out budget year +2, we're back into the strength of 12 months. So I'm not too concerned right now with what way the revenue streams are coming in compared to the expenditures and how the board looks in the next couple of years down the road. Are there any questions on the fund condition?
Yes, Mr. McDermott, this is Juan Armenta. I do have a question about the 24 months. Is that just a practice rule, or is there some statutory or regulatory trigger that causes something to happen at 24 months?
That's a great question. There is a statutory mechanism that says 24 months is where you need to adjust your spending. I'm sorry, adjust how you bring in your fees, how you adjust it. So you do want to keep this well below the 24 months. And yes, there have been programs that we've had to work with to get them down below the 24 months. So there is a statute in place to keep you there.
Okay, so that's why you're telling us the sweet spot then that we want to be in there into is around that 12-month period, so we're not hitting up against that cap nor compromising our future in the case of an emergency.
Correct.
All right, got it. Thank you.
And if there are no other questions, we can move to the second document, moderator. Okay, so the second document is just pure and simple. It's going to be the expenditures as they are reflected towards the budget. So on this document, it's going to be expenditures from top to bottom. It'll be personal services, which would be your salaries and your benefits. And then the bottom 2/3 is going to be your operating expenses. So for the salary and benefits, we have a budget of 1.094. I'm projecting year end to be spending about $858,000, with a savings of about $235,000 here. And this is a savings that is attributed to vacancies, which is normal as we go through the year. There's always the vacancies throughout the year that attribute to this. So I'm very happy with this number here that we're looking at. Nothing to be alarmed about. I'm comfortable with where we are there. Now, as we go down to the operating expenses, this is just going to be your normal discretionary and non-discretionary spending, your general expenses, your printing, all the way down. And the question always comes up, do we have savings in in-state travel or out-of-state travel? Well, with the pandemic, I'm projecting zero travel for in-state and out-of-state, so you'll see a $0 line item right there for traveling. So we have a savings there of the full projected amount, full allocated amount of $33,000. And as you just work down, you see expenses in each line item. Nothing too terrible here to be concerned about. I'm looking about 1.8 million, almost 1.9 million in operating expenses. So when you add the operating expenses with a salary and benefits up top, we're looking to spend about $2.7 million. That $2.7 million subtracted from the allocated amount of $2.8 million gives us a projected reversion of about $153,000. That $153,000 equates to about 5.3% of the allocated budget of 2.8. And as we talked about the sweet spot and the fund condition being 6 to 12 months, the sweet spot for the percentage of reversion is 3 to 6%. So we're at 5.3%, wanting to be between 3 and 6%. So we're very solid in between that sweet spot. So I'm very comfortable where we are here. The spending is in control, and Executive Officer Khan has been very timely with her spending. These are the figures that I share with her every month. So if there's any issues that happens, we will discuss this. And so there's no surprises that pop up. And right now, as we stand, both the fund condition and this expenditure report look solid. And I can say with a high degree of certainty that it will continue down this trend, and we will see solid numbers at the end of the year. And are there any questions with the expenditure report?
Okay, Mr. McDermott, it doesn't seem we have any questions on the expenditure report. Does that conclude your budget analysis?
That concludes my analysis.
Excellent. Thank you so much, as always, for explaining this to us. I don't think we have any more accountants left on the board, so it's excellent to have your input. So thank you.
All right.
Okay. I'm sorry, Mr. McDermott, please complete your thought.
No, I just said I appreciate it. Thank you. Have a good day.
Okay, thank you, sir. Very good. That completes his analysis. Madam Moderator, would you please open the public channel to determine if there are any public comments?
This is the moderator, and at the direction of the board, I have opened the Q&A panel. If you would like to request public comment for your reference, being displayed on the screen are instructions. I will pause momentarily to allow individuals time to access this feature. At this time, we have not received any requests. Would you like to close this feature?
Yes, please.
Features closed.
Thank you. Okay, everybody, let's go ahead and take a 10-minute comfort break and reconvene at 9:50 unless anybody has any other ideas. All right, hearing none, let's reconvene at 9:50. Quick comfort break. Thank you. I don't know if it's appropriate to call roll again just to make sure everybody's here. What do you think, Mr. McGuire?
Were you asking President Armenta whether we should call roll?
Yeah, again, just to make sure everybody's back from break. Does that make sense?
I think it makes sense. If we were all in a meeting room together, we could easily see each other, but unfortunately we can't. So this is the next best thing.
Okay. Well, let's go ahead and do that. Ms. Gompers, if you're back, could you please reinitiate a roll call, please?
All right. Charles Alexander,
Present.
Juan Armenta,
Present.
Jennifer Carlquist,
Present.
Sonia Early, should we wait for Sonia?
Let me text her quickly because I was just, oh, there she is.
Oh, anyone hear me? Yeah, I can hear you. Jed Tran,
Present.
Randy Hawkins,
Here.
Diego Nzunza.
Present.
Okay.
All right, excellent. Having reassessed our role after the break, the next item would be number 9, and that is discussion and possible action on the new physician assistant board logo. And that duty falls to whom does that fall, Rosanna?
Michelle K.
Okay. Michelle, if you would lead us through the discussion, please.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Michelle Cave, and I'm an information officer with the Office of Public Affairs. And I'm the assigned IO for the Physician Assistant Board. So good morning. Okay, does everyone have the images, the choices, the logo options in front of them? Okay.
Yes.
Okay, great. Okay, so today we will review the final 3 logo options for the board's decision. So option number 1, we have the heart. Actually, it's a pretty clever. We have a stethoscope, which is a heart, along with the initials for the physician assistant board, and of course the name down below. And with this particular logo, it is apparent that this logo is pertaining to a healthcare provider, and that's through the use of the heart as well as the stethoscope, as compared to the previous logo where if you just saw that, maybe a person not related to DCA or the physician assistant board would question, you know, what is this? But here with this particular logo, it's apparent that it may have something to do with healthcare, where and in this instance, there's not a person, but there is something related to the service of healthcare, the heart caring. And we have 3 different color options. And I'd also like to note that these color options can be revised if the board does decide on a particular look. We can certainly have our designers go back and rework colors if there are any concerns about the colors. Are there any questions? If there are no questions, we'll move on to logo option number 2. And with logo option number 2, again, it is apparent that this logo is pertaining to healthcare and specifically more so an individual. In this logo, the focus is really on the individual being the giver of the healthcare. And so we have the use of the heart, but then there's also the head. So there is a person, and this logo is gender neutral. And there's also a stethoscope. So even if the word physician assistant board were removed from the bottom and you just had the image and the acronym PAB, there would be an assumption, okay, this has something to do with an individual providing healthcare, whereas compared to the previous logo, you didn't have that look there. And again, the colors can be reworked if the board chooses to do so. Are there any questions with logo option number 2?
I have a question. Be recognized, Board President Armenta. This is Carl Quist.
Of course, Jennifer, please go ahead.
On the second option, is it possible to make the stethoscope red on that what appears to be a blue background to make there a bit of contrast?
I believe so. We'll check. Are you talking about in the black and white version or?
Yes.
Well, in black and white is just that. That would be if it were in black and white print, like two-tone. If it's 4-color, which the remaining 3 logos are 4-color, we can look into that option. So, for example, with B, if we used a blue heart, you're saying to make the stethoscope red so that it pops.
Looking at the top with the black, it seems like it's black background and the letters are white, top right corner. If the stethoscope there could be red, I just think that would add a contrast.
Okay, so just so that you understand, this is just whenever you're creating logos or in print, there's always a 4-color, which is your color, and then black and white. So they're just showing what it looks like reversed. So in those 2 options, there would not be color because it's only 2-color, black and white. Hello?
Really, thank you for the clarification.
Okay. Are we ready to move on to logo option number 3? Okay. And logo option number 3, this option is more abstract because there is no person there. So the sense is that this could possibly be an entity, not an individual. And this is the physician assistant board. So the physician assistant is not an entity or a clinic or a hospital. However, we wanted to provide an alternate option for the board to choose from. So here we have the use of the stethoscope circling the cross, which is So this is a typical image that is often used in healthcare. So immediately when I saw this, I thought of an urgent care facility, but it's ultimately the board's decision. So again, this particular logo is more abstract. It does have the medical imagery from the cross symbol as well as the stethoscope. But if you were to place your finger or a pen over a physician assistant board and you just saw the cross with the stethoscope and the acronym, it might be hard to decipher, is this a physician assistant board or is this the name of a hospital or clinic or urgent care facility? Are there any questions?
Mr. President, this is Jed.
Please go ahead, Jed.
I didn't want to interrupt you. I can go after you if you like.
No, go ahead, please.
Okay. I just was wondering if maybe like, I get that the stethoscope is associated with healthcare, but wondering if maybe like you could put a caduceus or something in there, because there's a lot of medical professions that use a stethoscope that are not clinicians, or people who function at the level that physician assistants do. And I think maybe just a stethoscope doesn't accurately reflect the high level decision making that PAs perform. So that would be my only comment on this designs.
Okay, our team of designers, they followed direction that was received from the executive officer, and they were told to focus on the use of a stethoscope and or a heart. So if the board is deciding to rework the imagery, then that is something that we can definitely take back to the drawing board if that is the board's vote or decision after today's meeting.
Are there other comments from other board members?
Hi, President Armenta. This is Diego.
Yes, please go ahead, Diego.
All right. So I think I'm kind of indifferent on whether or not the stethoscope is incorporated. I think it'd be fine. In regards to more the caduceus, so I think that might be a little controversial, because I know the caduceus versus the rod of Asclepius are kind of the touching points of the caduceus being more so commerce and other things versus the rod of Asclepius. Essentially the one snake versus the two snake.
Well, this is Juan Armenta. That's an interesting question. I didn't look at it from that perspective, not being a PA myself. How is that a sufficient distinction, the one snake versus the two snake logo? To let me back up. I guess my only concern is we're too close to the medical board's logo with the two snake logo versus the one snake. And maybe Diego and Jed and the PAs on the board can comment on that, since I'm kind of on the outside of that from an experience level. What do you guys think?
This is Jed. I may have misspoke there with my Greek sort of names for these symbols, but I think kind of where I was going with this was just to be, PAs basically are closely related to the medical board, and so having that symbol of healing and sort of recognizing that PAs work closely with physicians. I like having some imagery that's similar to the medical board to sort of represent the close relationship between PAs and physicians. Not that there's anything wrong with any of these. I don't have any, major objections to them. Just that if we're trying to make a new logo that represents sort of what PAs are and what the PAB, does with PAs in terms of protecting the public, I think maybe, that those sort of symbols might go better, might better represent what we do. But not opposed if the other board members disagree. I don't have any major opposition to the stethoscope.
Diego, what are your thoughts?
Dr. Hawkins, let me ask a question. Is this the last image that we're going to see? Is this the last logo?
Yes, there are only 3 choices, 3 options. This is the last.
This is Diego. Yeah, I mean, I think I'm not necessarily partial to either. I like the stethoscope. I think these are good options. Jed does bring up a good point on kind of linking us with the medical board as well and having that aspect. I don't know if maybe it might be a good idea to choose maybe our favorite one of these and possibly if staff can come up with something that could incorporate either the rod of Asclepius or the caduceus, and we can kind of choose on that at the next meeting.
Yeah, obviously this isn't, our logo isn't mission critical to anything we're doing. So I don't necessarily see the harm in taking into account Jed and Diego's comments here and asking the design team to incorporate both the staff and the caduceus and see what they come up with for our further consideration. Does that make sense to everybody?
Yes.
That seems good to me. Did you want to sort of take a vote as to which one of these the board likes the best, or what do you think?
I don't know. I mean, do we need to do that, do you think, Jed, in light of perhaps somebody bringing a motion to ask them to give us some more options with respect to the Asclepius and Caduceus and see where we go from there? Because that way we'll have more logos in front of us. We already have these in our materials, so I think maybe if we have a motion to ask them to go back and incorporate those 2 design features and see where we end up, that might be the best path.
Okay, so moved. I'll make that motion.
Okay, so it sounds like Jed is making the motion to ask to direct staff to direct the design logo team to revise or propose new logos incorporating the staff of Asclepius or the Caduceus. Is there anybody going to second that?
I'll second
I'd
that.
like to second. This is early.
Okay, we have a second. So do we need public comment before we call a vote on that, Will?
Yes, Mr. President.
All right, very well. Let's open, Madam Moderator, please, the channel for public comment on the motion.
This is the moderator, and at the direction of the board, I have opened the Q&A panel. If you would like to request public comment, please click on the question mark within the square located in the lower right-hand portion of your screen and type, "I would like to make a comment." All commenters will be provided 3 minutes and given a 30-second warning. I will now pause to allow individuals time to access this feature. At this time, we have not received any requests. Would you like me to close this feature?
Yes, please.
Feature's closed.
All right, Ms. Gompers, if you would call the vote on the pending motion, please.
Of course. And the second was from Sonia Early, correct?
I think we had two people jump in there, but Sonia's second will be fine for the minutes.
Okay, great. Charles Alexander,
Aye.
Juan Armenta,
Aye.
Jennifer Carlquist,
Aye.
Sonia Early,
Aye.
Jed Grant,
Aye.
Diego Nzunza.
Aye.
Great.
All right, the motion carries by unanimous vote. So I am sure that Rosanna will see that that is carried out. Okay, so that concludes that component. Let me switch to my agenda view here. All right, Dr. Hawkins, if you would please provide us with your report on the medical board activities.
Thank you very much. Turn my volume down. Can you still hear me?
Yes, you seem to be coming through well.
Okay. Thanks for the opportunity to report on Medical Board of California activities. So based on outline, I'll make a few comments for emphasis. The last PA Medical Board meeting was February 4th and 5th, and that preceded our prior PA Board quarterly meeting. The next Medical Board meeting is this week, Thursday and Friday. There have been some special meetings related to the Medical Board. Actually, I guess it didn't get up there. I sent this outline, but I sent it early this morning, so it does not appear. First, there was a Senate Rules Committee hearing for 3 board members for appointment. These were 3 physician board members who were up for reappointment. That was on February 3rd, 2021. There's a Senate Rules Committee hearing for 4 board members for appointment on the 12th, which is Wednesday. There are 3 public members and myself who are being considered for reappointment going before Senate Rules Committee. The third item I want to mention is that the Medical Board has had 3 Senate Review Oversight hearings. So we went before the joint hearing of Senate Business Professions and Education Development and the Assembly Business and Professions committees. The first was on March 19th, and there was overview of the board and discussion of board enforcement and overview of patient impact. The legislators expressed concern emphasized by the public regarding enforcement timelines, which we all agree are too long, and complainant access and public engagement by the medical board. It was a difficult sunset. The second sunset hearing occurred May 15th, and the primary areas of discussions were medical license fee increases, which are proposed. Second, postgraduate training license and implication. Third was mental health and physical wellness. And the fourth was licensed midwives board advocated. I'm just going to give you a little bit more information about those 4 items. The medical board has not had a fee increase for licensed physicians in over 14 years. And to remain solvent, we have to do that. In addition to agreement that the fee needs to be increased, discussions had to surround efficiencies that the board may be able to adopt and cost recovery, something we don't do now. With regard to postgraduate training license, there's a lot of discussions about that. You may know that presently, to get licensed in the state of California as a physician, you must complete 36 months of training, and 24 months have to be in the same program. Previously, you could get a license fee finished if you were educated in medical school in the US or Canada after 1 year, an rotating internship essentially, and 2 years if you were internationally trained. The objective of this postgraduate training license is public protection by increasing the duration of training. The 24-month is to allow the individual to be viewed over a certain period of time to see if there are deficiencies which can be identified and corrected, as compared to someone jumping from program to program. There were some concerns about this. For example, residents taking a leave, say a pregnancy leave as an example, and interrupting their training. There's a question about being able to moonlight, because Medi-Cal does not view this license as a free and clear license in the state to practice medicine. And there are some ACGM inquiries. So there are some challenges that the board is discussing with stakeholders, because this is there are some unintended consequences and there's some things to be dealt with. We realize this is a problem. The third one is the mental health and physician wellness. And what I'd say about that is, in recognition that there's need for physicians with mental issues to receive care, the rate of ND suicide is up. Physician suicide is up. The medical board changed its questions on its licensing application to not have individuals reluctant to talk about prior mental illness that's been treated and controlled. We took some of those off. And we talked a little about the physician wellness program, which is evolving at this time. The final area is the licensed midwife board. And what this surrounds is licensed midwife believe they should be monitored and regulated by their peers rather than being regulated by others. Currently, they're under the medical board. The medical board supports them having their own individual board. Some of the big issues include the problem with vaginal deliveries after C-section. Can they be safely done in the home? And the language thus far that it indicates that a physician, obviously an obstetrician and gynecologist, taking on some responsibility when the person attempts to have a delivery outside of the hospital. So there's some challenges with this, but the medical board is in support of them having their own board and oversight. Any questions? I hope I didn't mumble too much. That's the end of my report. Any questions, comments?
Yes, thank you, Doctor. One thing that was of interest is the regulatory package that we operate under seems like it's going to be commented upon at the next medical board meeting, and we anticipate CAPA making comment on that regulatory package. CAPA has apparently taken a position, at least through their lobbyists, that the supervision of PAs by MDs does not necessarily have to coincide in practice area. So you could have a PA practicing PA duties in dermatology where the supervising physician specialty is orthopedics. From a supervisorial point of view, I think the board might think that that is somewhat troublesome, as the statute calls for competent supervision. It would seem to me, from a statutory interpretation point of view, that competent or being competent to perform a particular service necessarily includes proper supervision and support. So we would like the opportunity, I think, and we'll discuss this, we'll roundtable this now, but I think the board should have some input at the medical board meeting to rebut or comment or amplify the comments that CAPA may make, because we think their push will be that their interpretation of the statute is the coincidence of practice areas is irrelevant, and so long as you have a physician willing to attest to supervision, then any specialty at all can be employed. So your input or advice on how we might be able to get our comments in front of the medical board, and that may be simply by one of us calling in to make comment on the public comment section,
right,
or perhaps even being placed on an agenda item. Could you speak to that, Doctor? And then I would invite the other board members and perhaps even Rosanna to comment.
So I support your comments. We can't change the agenda now, but so the best place is going to be under public comment when we get to the legislative tab.
Okay.
And a member of the PA board can best articulate this, I believe.
Okay, I'd like to hear comments from board members on this topic, particularly Jed. I know you've taken the lead on this, and while I feel very comfortable in commenting on statutory interpretation matters, and maybe we need two of us on there, in law, that would be my expertise. I think it's also important to have somebody with the technical expertise that Jed spoke to with great effect in the past. And Jed, I don't know how effective or how possible that's going to be, being that you're in the Middle East. But perhaps you could speak to this, or other board members have comment on how we can best handle this situation. So first, Jed, if you would comment, please.
Thanks, President Armenta. I'm happy to comment on that. I think your explanation was pretty clear. If you're going to supervise somebody, it's, I think, required that you're going to have the requisite knowledge to do that. The language of our proposed regulation does include that PA should be supervised by someone who is in their usual and customary practice, not supervising them when they're outside of that. We do think that CAPA might have some objection to that, as well as to the requirement for general anesthesia to have personal presence of the supervising physician. So those are some things that, I think the regulation needs to clarify the law just a little bit as to what competent means and what supervision, like the sort of the boundaries of what appropriate supervision is. And would be happy to talk to the medical board about that. One thing, because I'm currently 10 hours ahead, if I don't know, Dr. Hawkins, what can be done in terms of when things are covered on the agenda, moving them around, but it would certainly be helpful if we could participate in the meeting a little bit earlier in the agenda so that I'm not trying to comment on this at 2 a.m. But
let me grab
the other thing is, in the past, the medical board has invited us to attend the meeting to comment when they're talking about approving legislation that has to do with the PA board, rather than just asking us to comment as a member of the public. So I'm not sure if that could be done again, or if we need to do some sort of coordination with the executive officer of the medical board to do that. Those would just be my thoughts.
I understand, and probably the latter, but I know I have to get the agenda. I only have our agenda now in front of me, but there are two other opportunities where one can speak. One is items not on the agenda, although theoretically it is on the agenda. You can speak about any topic. So at that point, if the time made more sense, a representative from the PA board could talk about that particular legislation and make a comment. I don't know if that'd be acceptable because it is on the agenda, but I recognize there's maybe some mitigating factors here. I'm just going to grab the agenda real quick. It's printed. Hold on.
Mr. Hawkins, it's listed as item 26. I've been working with Carrie Webb.
What day is that? That's on Friday?
Carrie Halbo, the Regulations Council, and I've been working with Carrie Webb, and it is on your agenda for the 14th as item 26. We are asking to have the text reviewed by the Met Board as we're trying to clarify these legislative changes to the practice agreement.
So that's Friday, which is probably near the end.
Yeah.
But I think we started at 9 that day. Let me get that myself anyway.
President Armenta, I'm wondering if any of the other members of the board have thoughts about practicing with a supervising physician in the practice agreement that is not in the same specialty as the practice, what their thoughts on that are.
Yes, that's a good point. Also on the, although we discussed it before, while Jed is inviting those comments, I'd also invite parallel comments on the general anesthesia presence requirement. So any other comments from the board members, please?
This is Hawkins again. So item 22 is would be my update of the PA board to the medical board. So that's not where this would occur. Item number 10 is legislation. So that would be the 13th, which is Wednesday. And where is that at? What, there's a written exam. That's not it.
Item 26.
Oh, separate item. Okay, my apologies. Thank you. I haven't gotten this far. I go before Senate hearings on Wednesday, so I'm preoccupied. so I haven't looked at the details of this. Okay. So that meeting starts at 9 in the morning, 9 to 2, and it's probably going to come up sometime around noon or something like that, noon or 1.
So Jed, how does that work?
I think that'll be fine. If it's around noon or 1, that's like 8 to 9 o'clock my time, and I can be there for that.
Okay.
All right. So board members, what do you think about both Jed and I participating in that, at least a public comment section? And what do you all think about us commenting as we've been speaking to have a coincidence of practice areas and the presence of the supervising physician in general anesthesia contexts, because that's where we expect pushback. So please feel free to comment.
President Armenta, I think that Jed would be a great team on this.
Thank you, Jennifer.
President Armenta, I would agree. I think it would be great for you guys to weigh in and talk to the medical board.
Thank you, Sonia. Okay, well, hearing no other comments, I think that's what Jed and I will endeavor to do. Rosanna, if you could be sure to email to us the particulars so that we can make sure we are involved. And Jed, we know now that your mobile VPN can text me directly, so we can be in communication that way. Okay, great. Well, thank you for that report, Dr. Hawkins. Does anybody else have any comments on any other component of Dr. Hawkins' report?
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, not hearing any further comment. Madam Moderator, would you please open the line for public comment on Dr. Hawkins' agenda item?
This is the moderator, and at the direction of the board, I have opened the Q&A panel. If you would like to request public comment for your reference being displayed on the screen are instructions to make this request. You will be provided 3 minutes and given a 30-second warning. I will pause momentarily to allow individuals time to access this feature. At this time, we have not received any requests. Would you like me to close this feature?
Yes, please. Thank you, Madam Moderator.
You're welcome. Features closed.
Okay, very well. Let us move on to Item 11, that is Ms. Halbo and Ms. Dillon. And as Ms. Khan suggested, I'd like to welcome Ms. Dillon aboard. So please, ladies, however you've divvied this up, if you would go ahead and begin your presentation on item 11.
Hi. I know that Jasmine has been very busy with the ledge items, and so I said I'd be happy to go over giving the board the status of the regulatory items. The first is the substantial relationship criteria, the AB 2138. That was approved by the Office of Administrative Law and became effective January 29th of 2021. So that regulatory package is completed and in effect. The next on item B is the status of required actions against registered sex offenders. That initially started out mixed in with the AB 2138 package and was pulled out. And the public comment period that began on the 2nd of April and will close on May 18th. If there are no public comments submitted, staff will prepare the papers for legal and executive and agency review and submit it to OAL and hopefully move it to final. If there are comments, the staff will prepare responses and bring those back to the board for the board's approval. For item C, renewal of license and continuing medical education, staff is working with me and getting all those papers together to submit for the initial publication. Item D, approved continuing medical education programs for the implicit bias that is required. That began a public comment period on the 9th of April, and that will close on May 25th. Again, if there are no comments, staff will work with me and give us the final documents, get it approved through the executives and an agency, submit it to OAL, and move it right along. If there are comments, I'll work with staff and we'll prepare responses to comments that will come back to the board so that you review the comments and possible responses. And then the last one for item E, this is the package that the board approved a number of regulation changes and amendments to different regulations to implement the SB 697, major practice change legislation. And upon looking at it, we realized that not half, but a portion of them do need to be reviewed by the medical board because it relates to physician supervision and practice directly. And the others were more not related, updating the issues around the license application, updating people need to give new emails when they moved, new location. So those were more administrative. So we split that into two packages, one that requires the medical board review and one that does not. That text was submitted to Carrie Webb, the attorney with the medical board, and she agreed that the stuff we said didn't need to be reviewed, And the remaining text is been scheduled for the upcoming medical board meeting on the 14th. So that instead of having the staff prepare the notice, the initial statement of reasons and all these documents, and then get it to the med board and have the med board question or want to change something in the text, it seemed more efficient to have the med board review the text, and then we'll submit all the other documents to the attorney before it moves forward for public notice. So that is scheduled for the 14th. That is item 26. And as you discussed, it sounds like we're going to have good representation there if issues are raised at that time. And that's the report on the regulations, unless there's anything that Jasmine has heard this morning or has new updates that I am not aware of. Jasmine, do you have anything to say?
Hi, Karen. No, I don't have anything to add at this time. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Well, welcome aboard, Jasmine.
Thank you.
Glad to have you on the team. So, okay, Karen, does that conclude the report?
Yes, sir.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. It's a shorter report than we're used to on this topic, but I think that's a good sign that we're doing things efficiently and well. So, Madam Moderator, board members, any comments before I open for public? All right, hearing no comments, Madam Moderator, please open the public channel for public comment.
This is the moderator, and at the direction of the board, I have opened the Q&A panel. If you would like to request public comment, please click on the question mark within the square located in the lower right-hand portion of your screen and type "I would like to comment." All comments will be addressed in the order they are received. You will be provided 3 minutes and given a 30-second warning. I will pause momentarily to allow individuals time to access this feature. At this time, we have not received any requests. Would you like me to close this feature?
Yes, please. Thank you.
You're welcome. Features closed.
All right, very well. So we're moving swiftly today. So let's move right into, I believe the next item is 12, the Education and Workforce Development Advisory Committee update on physician assistant education programs and applicants in California by Directors Grant and Alexander. Gentlemen, however you've arranged it between yourselves, please take the floor and inform us of your report.
Dr. Alexander, if it's all right, I'll go ahead and give the report. I wasn't sure I'd be able to have good connection here, but it seems to be going okay. So is that okay with you?
Sure, Jay, go ahead, proceed.
Okay. So we continue to see strong growth in the PA profession in California. So right now there are still 6 developing programs within California. We have 16 programs now. 2 of the programs in California progressed from provisional accreditation, which is what occurs in the first 5 years a program is operating, to full accreditation. And we still have several provisional programs, as you can see in this graph here. There's still a geographic maldistribution to some extent of the PA programs in California, with the majority being in the Los Angeles and San Diego area, although the area of growth in the Central Coast and to some extent the Bay Area is encouraging, given the large population there. It should note that many of the programs do have a goal of supplying healthcare workforce to underserved areas. And so even though the programs themselves are related in large metropolitan areas, they often send students to rural parts of California for training. So the number of programs in California is continuing to grow, which means we'll continue to have more graduates in California. On this graphic, if it has a question with an asterisk, we've used in terms of tallying the numbers of graduates per year, the national average, which is 45, to sort of at least gauge some idea of how many increased graduates we'll have once these provisional programs, developing programs progress in the accreditation pathway to provisional. We should note also that 2 programs are on probation in California. The accreditation website doesn't go into any great detail about why they're on probation, but generally what that means is that they are failing to meet the accrediting body's standards in one way or another. This can be a major problem, or it can be something relatively minor, just depending on how bad it is. So we'll continue to watch that. Also noting that one program that was on probation resolved their issue and now is no longer on probation. So right now about 884 students, PA students, graduate per year, approximately, based on the numbers of students that the program is accredited to accept. It's around 46 per program, which is pretty close to the national average of 45. But if the developing programs achieve accreditation, then we'll have about 1,019 roughly graduates within California. And that, of course, that doesn't count people that graduate from PA programs outside the state of California that come here. But more looking at, the practice patterns tend to reflect where people are from. So people that are from California that train outside the state don't always come back, but people that are from California that train within the state tend to stay within the state. And people that train in California, some percentage of those students tend to stay within the state as well. So in looking at meeting our workforce needs within the state of California, this growth in PA programs in the state is a good thing. One challenge that PA programs face is having enough clinical rotations. So for maybe members of the public who aren't familiar with how PAs train, is roughly based on the first and third year of medical school. So the first year is all didactic, and the second and third years of PA training are clinical. And those clinical rotations, there's 9 required clinical rotations that they have to complete. And so sometimes procuring those clinical rotations can be challenging for PA programs, particularly during the COVID pandemic. It's been quite a struggle as they've tried to get students into the clinic during the pandemic. So many of these programs came up with some really unique ways of doing that. Of course, telemedicine played a big role. But that is always the limiting factor to growth of PA programs within the state. So just as an aside, looking at things that will make continued growth of PA programs here accelerate or encourage growth would be things that make it easier for people to take PA students with them in the clinic to train them. So that really is kind of concludes the report. I'm happy to answer any questions that anyone may have.
Thank you, Jed. This is Juan.
Thank you, Jed. This is Juan.
I do have a question. I see there's 2 entries on schools that say developing, and then 2 of them have 3 entries actually, and then 3 of them say question mark, but then AT still has 100 students. What is the distinction? What does that mean?
Do you mean in the column that says number of students per cohort? Is that where your question is?
Right. So I see some that say developing question mark asterisk.
Okay, so that column with the numbers in it reflects the number of students that the program has reported that they plan on taking. So when a PA program applies for accreditation from the ARCPA, they have to tell them how many students they are planning on taking, because they have to have enough at the opening of the program. They have to have enough clinical rotations to train that number of students. So the ones where there's a question mark with an asterisk just means that either in the information on the accrediting body's website, the ARCPA, or on the website of the school itself, I was not able to find the number of students that they are planning on admitting to their program. And in particular, this is interesting with Touro University because it's an online program. There is one other online program at Yale University on the East Coast that is all online, but the number of students there would be, could be quite large as long as they are, have enough clinical rotations for that. But the national average for number of students that a PA program has is 45, and in California it's 46. Well, some programs are quite large, such as the AT Still one, as you mentioned, on the Central Coast, who plans on taking 100 students. They would have to have a very robust clinical network to support, that's essentially 900 rotations for students in a 14 or 15 month period. So kudos to them if they can do it. It's pretty difficult to do. And that's why most programs have 40 to 50 students is, where it starts to get pretty difficult. I hope that answered your question.
Yes, it does. Thank you so much. Any other questions or comments? Mr. Grant, does that conclude your report?
Yes, sir. If there's no questions from the public or board members, that will conclude my report.
Thank you. Okay, having heard no other requests for comments or questions from board members, Madam Moderator, could you please open the public channel for public comment?
This is the moderator, and at the direction of the board, I have opened the Q&A panel. If you would like to request public comment, for your reference, being displayed on your screen are instructions to make that request. I will now pause momentarily to allow individuals time to access this feature. At this time, we have not received any requests for public comment. Would you like me to close this feature?
Yes, please close the feature. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Feature has been closed.
Very well. Let's move then to item 13, the report by the Legislative Committee, comprised of Ms. Hurley, Ms. Carlquist, and Ms. Dillon. So please, however you have arranged this, go ahead and proceed with that report.
Sonia, you want to take the lead?
Our new Jasmine Dillon mentioned that she would take the lead today.
Awesome.
I see Jasmine is listed, but I don't see a microphone icon next to her at all.
That would be correct. This is the moderator. It does appear we've lost audio connection. Jasmine, this is the moderator. If you are able to hear, if you click up at the very top where it says audio and video, the very first option says switch audio. From there, it will give you call-in instructions to where you can call in and connect audio that way. Mr. Board President, this is the moderator. It does appear that the office may be experiencing some technical difficulties with connectivity as all of the members have lost their audio connection from the office. I will await for your direction.
Hi, this is Christy. Jasmine is having difficulties with her audio.
Yes, Christy, the moderator just informed us that from the office, it looks like we lost audio from all participants.
Yes, a few of the staff lost audio, so we're trying to get it back on.
Do you need a few minutes to do that?
Yes, please.
Why don't we take a short break and reconvene at 11?
Thank you.
Okay, so we'll stand at recess until then. Yes, she is. Ms. Gompers, if you could do a quick roll call to see where we are presently.
This is the moderator and Ariel Gompers. If you are speaking, you are muted. You will have to unmute yourself.
I will go ahead and call roll. This is Rosanna.
Excellent. Thank you, Rosanna.
Charles Alexander.
Present.
Juan Armenta.
Present.
Jennifer Carlquist.
Present.
Sonia Early.
Present.
Jet Grant.
Present.
Randy Hawkins.
Here.
Diego Insunza.
Present.
Excellent. It looks like we have everybody reconvened, and it looks like Jasmine's microphone is up. So we called item 13 before the recess, and Jasmine was to go ahead and take us through this. So Jasmine, you have the floor for your debut, please.
Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, you appear to be coming through fine.
Okay, great. I just wanted to say thank you all for the warm welcome, and I look forward to working with you all and promoting the interests of the board while also protecting the interests of our consumers. We have quite a few bills to discuss, so let's get started. First, we have SB 48 regarding dementia and Alzheimer's patients. So this bill is on the third reading on the floor of the Senate. We wrote a position letter on March 4th, 2021, sent to the author's office, where we requested that the author amend the bill to change the required hours of the continuing education for the physician assistant licensee to be 4 hours, and that the bill should apply to those physician assistant licensees who practice in a specialty where dementia would be a common finding, such as geriatric, internal medicine, or primary care. It appears that on March 9th, 2021, the bill was amended to reduce the number of continuing education hours for physician assistant licensees to 4 hours. However, it was not amended to incorporate the board's request that it apply to those physician assistant licensees who practice in a specialty where dementia would be a common finding. So I know that the board at its February 8th meeting took an oppose unless amended position. So this bill is up for discussion on how the board would like to proceed. So anyone with any questions, concerns, or comments, please go ahead.
This is Jed Grant. I appreciate that they amended the bill for one of our requests, but I still feel like PAs practice in every healthcare setting, and in some of those settings, they're very unlikely to come across someone with dementia, such as maybe pediatrics or something like that. And it's a little onerous for them to require specific training on just dementia. I think that the providers that are, the PAs that are out there practicing have a pretty good feel for what their patient population is like and the type of continuing medical education that will be most beneficial to them in their practice. So to require, them to have specific types of education regarding a patient population that they simply do not see, I think is onerous and definitely a problem. So I would suggest that we do not remove our opposition.
Dr. Hawkins, may I speak?
Absolutely, Doctor. Please proceed.
I support Jed's comment, and that was what I said to the medical board. Of course, we're meeting this week, so I haven't reviewed the legislative package yet, but it doesn't make sense to require orthopedic PA to, for example, be required to take the CME. But it's as important as it is for those in family medicine, internal medicine, gerontology. So I support what Jed's comment.
This is Juan Armenta. Let me ask Jasmine. It's reduced to 4 hours. I don't recall what the prior hour requirement was. Can you tell us that?
Yes, the prior hour requirement was 10 hours.
Okay, Dr. Hawkins and Mr. Grant, in light of the 4 hours, does that at all reduce the concerns you have, or would you still recommend that the board position be opposed unless amended to the common finding issue?
Hawkins, it does not change my opinion because 4 hours or 10 hours are not well spent, and especially that do not see dementia patients.
This is Jed Grant. I concur with Dr. Hawkins. I think it's an unhelpful intrusion into the continuing medical education that wouldn't apply to everyone, yet we would be making everyone do it. But I do appreciate the reduction in hours, that if it does pass, at least it's not 10 hours is really pretty onerous.
Okay, is this an area, Mr. McGuire, where we take a vote on a board position? Oh, his microphone is.
This is Jed. It sounds like maybe Mr. McGuire's microphone is broken or something, but if my understanding is correct, we've already taken an opposed position. If we don't do anything, then the position remains.
I see. Okay. And how do we document that? Do we just leave it alone, Jed, from your past experience as president? Do I ask the board members if there's any change of position and then we just leave it?
That's correct. If you wanted to change the position, my understanding is that there would need to be a motion and a second to do that. Otherwise, you can just leave it there, or you could direct staff to say, we appreciate the partial change, but we remain opposed. Until the other thing that we put on the opposition was accomplished.
I see. Okay. All right. With that understanding, does any other board member have any comments that would that they want to put forward that might persuade the board to revisit its position? Very well. Then, hearing none, I think we should adopt the position recommended by immediate past President Grant and ask the executive officer to do exactly that. That we thank them for advising or for reduction of hours, but our position remains the same. Any objections to that approach?
Hi, this is Will McGuire. Can you hear me now?
Yes, you're back on, Will.
Sorry about that. I apologize. With all the technical issues we've been having, I've been a victim myself. But I think I caught most of what was stated, and Jed recommended, since we are not inclined to our position, that we don't necessarily, the oppose unless amended position previously adopted would hold unless we amended it. But did I miss something else? Were we planning to take a vote to reaffirm our position, or to make additional amendments, or are we just sticking with what we have currently?
The conclusion seems to be that we would stick with the originally voted on position and simply direct staff to thank the appropriate participants for the reduction in the hours, but the board's position remains the same. And we with Jed's experience concluded that does not require any vote. Is that correct, Will?
Yeah, I would tend to agree if it's a direct staff and we're not planning to issue a new letter, indicating support one way or the other. I think we're fine.
Okay.
I noted they did take one of our amendments, so if we're still hanging our hat on the number of hours amendment. If they didn't take, then I think that our previous position still holds.
Well, it's not, my understanding is not necessarily the number of hours, is that the statute should be amended. The board's position was to require this education only of physician's assistants where dementia would be an expected and common finding. And that we would direct staff to issue a letter stating, thank you for the amendment on hours. That's great. We appreciate that. But because there is no amendment to reflect that common finding issue, the board's
Right.
position remains the same.
I'm sorry, I must have misheard. Thank you for that clarification. Yes.
So my understanding is we do not require a vote for that. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Then we will leave that as it stands. So direct the executive officer, and Jasmine, please carry on with the next part of your package.
Okay, great. So the next item is AB 29, State Bodies Meetings. This bill is currently located in the Assembly Committee on Governmental Organization. And this was introduced, excuse me, at the February 8th board meeting, where the board took a watch position. And just to summarize, this bill requires that notice to include all writings or materials provided for the notice meeting to a member of the state body by the staff of a state agency, board, or commission, or another member of the state body that are in connection with a matter subject to discussion or consideration at the meeting. It also requires those writings or materials pertaining to the meeting be made available on the state body's internet website and to any person who requests the writings or materials in writing on the same day as the dissemination of the writings and materials to members of the state body, or at least 72 hours in advance of the meeting, whichever is earlier. In addition, this will also prohibit a state body from discussing those writings or materials or from taking action on an item to which those writings or materials pertain at a meeting of the state body unless the state body has complied with these provisions. So this bill has the goal of timely transparency. Staff complies with the notice requirements and generally posts this meeting materials between 10 days and 72 hours prior to its public meetings. However, staff recognizes that there are some exceptions concerning materials that are provided to the board, most often public comment, too close to the date of the meeting that would push the board out of compliance with the posting and dissemination requirements. In addition, since the board relies on DCA's internet team for posting and they request documents be provided 10 days in advance of posting, this puts staff in a bind with their burdensome production deadline, resulting in documents posted the same day the materials are disseminated to the board members. So any thoughts, questions, concerns on this bill?
Mr. President, this is Jed Grant. May I be recognized?
Of course, please.
Of course, please.
I think last time we talked about this and with the executive officer, and she said that she didn't think it would be particularly onerous for them, but that it could, there are some situations where it could be difficult. And I think we took a watch position on this last time, so not sure we need to change anything. We probably would be fine if this law went into effect, but if we were to oppose it, it's sort of the optics on that I think are not great, since it's really about transparency. We don't want to appear to be against transparency if we can help it. That's just my thoughts.
Thank you, Mr. Grant. I tend to agree completely with that. And my personal feeling is I don't see any reason to change the watch position. Does anybody else have any thoughts with regard to, well, actually any comments at all, and any comments on changing our watch position? Okay, hearing none, we'll let the board's prior adopted position of watch stand. Ms. Dillon, please give us your analysis of the next bill.
Okay, so the next bill, AB 54, is the emergency order violation license revocation bill for COVID-19. So on April 5th, 2021, the bill was amended to remove healing arts boards within the Department of Consumer Affairs as to who this bill would apply. And on top of that, the bill failed passage in committee. So this isn't a bill that I believe we need to be concerned about anymore. And so with that, are there any questions, comments, or concerns?
Very well, hearing none. Ms. Dillon, please, the next statute, the next bill.
Okay. The next bill, SB 102, is very similar to AB 54. And the same thing with this one. It also failed passage in committee. So I don't believe that we need to be concerned about this bill any longer as well. And the bill was essentially the same as AB 54, where it would prohibit the Department of Consumer Affairs or boards within the department from revoking a license or imposing a fine or penalty for failure to comply with any COVID-19 state of emergency orders or any stay-at-home orders, unless they could prove lack of compliance resulted in transmission of COVID-19. So any questions, comments, or concerns on this one?
Very well, hearing no requests for comment. Please move on to the next one, Ms. Dillon.
Okay, great. So AB 107, regarding the temporary licenses for military spouses, was revised on April 29th. The bill is actually currently located in the Assembly Committee on Appropriations, and it would do the following. It would, for specified boards and bureaus, expand temporary licensure requirements for military spouses, require boards and bureaus implementing temporary licensure to submit proposed regulations to the department no later than June 15th, 2022. Require all boards and bureaus not specified to offer licensed reciprocity for honorably discharged veterans and military spouses. And then numbers 4 and 5 listed in the meeting materials are no longer applicable since this was recently amended. But the bill would also require the department to submit an annual report to the legislature on military and military spouse licensure. So the staff recommendation for this bill is to watch, as this is a new bill introduced on December 16th, 2020. So any questions, comments, or concerns on AB 107?
Dr. Hawkins, may I speak?
Please, Dr. Hawkins.
Ms. Dillon, actually, I don't understand what this bill does.
Yeah, so this bill,
what the objective is, sorry.
I believe the objective is to accommodate spouses of persons who are part of the U.S. Army military to just expand their temporary licenses while they're in California. So when they're relocating from another area, this would basically allow them to maintain a temporary license of no longer than 12 months while they are practicing in California.
So the temporary license refers to the licensed individual. I don't understand what the spouse part is then.
So the licensed individual would be the spouse of the, would be the military spouse.
Yes, now I understand. Thank you. Thank you.
This is Jed. May I make a comment?
Please, Jed, go
Hearing
ahead.
no objection, I'll comment away.
Please do.
I think that if I understand correctly, this bill applies to boards and bureaus that offer a temporary license status, basically to grant the same temporary license to a spouse of a military member. But if I understand correctly, we don't offer, there's no temporary license pathway for our board. So this really wouldn't, if I understand correctly, have much effect on our board. Is looking for Julie or Rosanna to confirm that that's correct.
And this is Rosanna. Yes, that is correct. However, what I'm understanding from this bill and attending before COVID, we attended meetings at DCA regarding this issue. And basically, if a military spouse is licensed, say in New York, and while their spouse's temporary assignment in California, the spouse does not have to go through the whole licensing process, but be issued a temporary license here in California while they're in the state. Though we do not have a temporary license, or is it license I can't even say the word, I'm sorry, reciprocity. This bill, if it passes, I think this will be a pathway for us to have something like that. So I hope I'm understanding that correctly, but I think that's what this bill is doing.
So the bill would require us to make a temporary license status based on reciprocity of another state license. Is that correct?
That is my understanding, but again, we can look into this and get back to you guys.
Yeah, I think for me, it would be helpful to know whether or not we should, you know, what kind of position we should take on this bill to know what sort of effect it would have on our board. And admittedly, I only glanced over the language. I haven't read it in detail. I don't know, maybe Will has a comment in terms of, you know, it requiring a temporary license. My reading of it, I understand that if you don't have that status, it wouldn't really affect you, but that may be incorrect.
Let me ask, do we have a process in place for out-of-state applicants who are married to a member of the armed forces to receive an expedited temporary authorization to practice? Or was that Jed's question? The answer was no.
This is Julie. We do offer to expedite applications for individuals that are married to members of the military. So it's the same process that we offer to individuals that are in the military or have been discharged.
Yeah. Okay.
It's similar. I mean, they have to provide us with supporting documentation and request that when they apply. But yes, it is offered to spouses and domestic partners.
Excellent. That seems to solve our problem. I'm looking at the bill itself, and it states in subsection I that this section shall not apply to a board that has a process in place by which an out-of-state licensed applicant in good standing who is married to an active member process to expedite temporary authorization to practice. So if we have that process in place, this bill is not even going to apply to us because we've already done that.
But it's not temporary. It's a permanent license.
Yeah.
Oh,
exactly. That's the issue, is we don't have a temporary license status. We don't have that.
I see. Okay. Well, that may be problematic then.
This is Will. What about our Business and Professions Code Authority under 3519.5 on the probationary license? My understanding is we don't issue that currently, but from what I can tell here, it's still good law. What's the status of that particular license type?
What section is that, Will?
3519.5.
So I can give some background. The board used to issue licenses between when the PANCE exam was only offered like 4 times a year. The board used to issue a probationary license until the PA school graduate was able to take the NCCPA exam. And then if they failed the exam, they would revoke the license, and if they passed, they would just convert it to a regular license. That's what that section has been used for in the past. But interesting thought, Will, maybe we could just issue the same type of license while we're, processing the license for the military spouse. Although they would have to still, I guess it's really reciprocity is what we're talking about, I guess.
Yeah. And what is your understanding, Jed, just from a historical perspective on why we stopped issuing? Is it because the PANCE is offered more frequently now and we just don't need that section, but it's still there?
Yes, that's correct. So once the NCCPA began offering testing at the Pearson View centers that you can basically take the test anytime, there's no delay. It sort of removed the need for this because the whole point of it was if someone graduated and the test wasn't offered for 3 months, then, there was nothing they could do. But now that they can take the test the, same day they graduate if they want to. And so we removed the probationary license regulation, even though the law is still there.
I see. And Julie, you were talking before about the current process in place for this type of situation. Was there a statute or reg that speaks to that? Is that just an internal process? So I wasn't aware of one.
I believe there is a statute, right? Hold on just a moment.
There is a reg that or a statute that requires us to expedite military members as much as possible, which is what we do. I think last year or the year before, we were working on this a little bit to try and figure out if there was some way we could do that for deployed service members and renewals instead of just initial licensure. But sort of the conclusion that we came to there was, the actual processing time for us at the board of, 20 days or so was pretty fast in comparison to other boards that some of these laws were written to work with. The real time consuming part of our licensing process is really on the applicant getting all of their material in, if I understand correctly, as well as getting the background check and the fingerprints back and that sort of thing, all of which are sort of beyond our control, if I understand correctly. Julie, feel free to correct me if I'm wrong.
That is correct.
So the real difference in this bill is it just would extend those same courtesies to the military spouse that we would be extending, that we already extend to the military member. The difference here is that it's requiring a temporary license status, which the previous law or regulation did not require. It just said you have to license them as soon as possible, put them at the front of the line, that sort of thing. It didn't say anything about a temporary license. So that's where this is different.
And I'm still searching for that authority, Julie, if you still are as well. I'm trying to track down where it tells us in the statute or reg that that's how we're to treat military spouse.
I am too. I apologize. I don't have that information handy.
Yeah. I'm just searching for like the word military within and everything with a service member. Here we go, maybe.
Is it section 115.4 in our regulations?
Yeah, it's 115.4. Oh,
yes, thank you.
15.4.
So in our laws and regulations booklet, it's page 57, I believe.
I'm online. What's the statute or reg number?
114.4. 115.4, I believe. I'm sorry, military
Sorry.
expedited license.
Are you in the
One, one.
BPC or are you in the regulations?
It's the Business and Professions Code section 115.4.
115.4, thank you.
115.4, yes.
And 115.5.
Yes, 114 is for honorably discharged service members, so expediting the process for veterans.
And then 0.5 is the married to or domestic partnership.
Huh.
And
Well,
115.
115.5 seems to already do
Yes.
what AB 107 would have us do.
Again, I think it's different because it's a permanent license and we're agreeing to expedite the licensure process as much as possible as far as if they request it and they provide the required documentation, then we move them to the front of the line for review and we review them
I see.
as priority. And then they do get licensed once they've met all of the requirements versus a temporary license that would work somewhat similar to what Judd was discussing earlier, that we would offer them a temporary license until they meet the terms and conditions set forth by the board, and then their temporary license would become permanent.
I see.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, go ahead, Will.
I was just going to say, reading BPC code 115.5 together with the legislation, the proposed legislation, it strikes me that it's likely we would have to create kind of a new avenue for this expedited and temporary licensure. We could maybe argue that that doesn't apply to us, but that every board and bureau in the department would be making probably that same argument, since this authority in 115.5, this is in the general business and professions code regs applicable to all boards and bureaus. So it doesn't seem like we have a separate particular process for the temporary licensure.
Right. So the issue that I see with this, it really circles around reciprocity. Currently, the Federation of State Medical Boards is doing a study and working on an interstate compact, which would help quite a bit with this, which I'm happy to explain if the board members would like. But right now, the problem with reciprocity is that, say someone is licensed in New York and their spouse comes to California, we can check and see that their license is in good standing, but in that state. But if they don't provide us a list of all the states that they've been in, we can't check all of them. And we haven't verified any, we're sort of trusting the other state that they verified everything. And we can't, if they're under investigation for something, right, like a complaint has been filed or something like that, we can't see that either, if I understand correctly. So that was, at least when I was at the Federation of State Medical Boards meeting a year or two ago, these were some of the arguments that, concerns that people had about reciprocity. And so if you issue a temporary license, but you've not really fully checked and the person comes here and is practicing, that there is some element of risk to the public there because they've not been fully vetted as a normal licensee.
Yeah, that's a practical issue with this bill, and perhaps something that the board staff may wish to include in any communication it may have with the author's office.
So my thought is that I think I don't know if there's a way to sort of just work with the author on the issue, or if we need to take an opposed position to sort of force the author to address the issue. But the temporary license part of this is the problem that I have with it. And I don't know. I mean, I guess I'm sort of looking to Rosanna and maybe Will to sort of help guide whether or not we would be, you know, stepping on toes if we oppose this based on the temporary license problem. That we could explain in a letter, or if it would be better just to watch it and then contact the author with our concern.
We can definitely work with the author's office instead of putting our position right now. And Jasmine has contacted, you know, not this author's office, but, you know, we'll be contacting them, and we can just, you know, express the board's concerns regarding this bill and see how it changes as it progresses through the regulatory process.
I would like to comment.
Go ahead.
It seems to me that I've read this more carefully now, and I understand Jed's concerns. It is a practical barrier that is not going to go away, right, Jed? Since we don't have a uniform reporting system, we're not going to be able to check all 50 states to see if there's any pending discipline, right? I mean, that's not going away. That's not going away.
That's correct. The Federation of State Medical Boards is working on an interstate compact, which would address, you know, this issue, but currently we don't have an interstate compact for this. So yeah,
Okay.
that's not going to change.
All right. So if that doesn't change, our practical problem is how do we know whether they're subject to discipline? Because this statute simply requires the applicant submit a verification from the applicant's original licensing jurisdiction stating that they were in good standing. Well, good standing doesn't mean that you don't have an investigation pending. And if you look further in the section, it says that the boards can revoke this temporary license if they don't comply with the requirements in C, one of which is submitting this application that says I'm in good standing. I think if we can work with the author to expand that, not only good standing, but not subject to any active disciplinary proceedings, that would force the applicant to disclose whether they have any disciplinary things that are proceeding, and if they lie about it, we can revoke if we find out about it later. I think that's the most fertile ground, because this looks like a statute. I mean, anytime you say, hey, let's help veterans and veteran spouses, it's probably bad form to take any opposition to it. So that may be the area where we can convince the author to add that.
Excuse me, Juan, can I please say something in regards to finding out if an individual has discipline in another state? The board does have an avenue. We can run what's called a query through the National Practitioner Data Bank, because everybody in the United States, all healthcare licensing entities, are required by federal law to report when any adverse action has been taken against the licensee. So what we could do is, and there is a fee, it's like a $2 fee to query a licensee, and it will show anything, any actions that were taken.
Christina, that is correct. But I think the concern here is when there is a active investigation ongoing or a complaint has been filed, because the National Practitioner Data Bank doesn't receive the report until the complaint and discipline has been adjudicated. So they may have multiple complaints that the state is investigating. We would have no idea about that.
Oh yeah, that's correct.
So complaints are confidential, as far as out California. I'm pretty sure it's the same. Will, you can chime in. Until a formal discipline has taken, that's when these are reported to the data banks. So we wouldn't know otherwise. I mean, if there's an active investigation that's going on for an applicant, we normally don't get disclosures on that.
Okay, so that's a good reason then to force the applicant in this statute to disclose whether there is an active investigation in conjunction with making a temporary license application. I don't think that's too much to ask. If you're going to ask us to give you expedited temporary consideration because your spouse has been redeployed, I guess that's a scenario. Then I don't think it's too much for us to ask for them to aver in the application that they're not subject to any disciplinary proceedings. I think that protects the public, and I think would be an easy fix within this statute. So I think my recommendation is that we see if we can work with the author to do something like that, rather than oppose it, because I just don't like the optics, as Jed chimed in earlier on this type of statute of opposing it formally.
I tend to agree with you, Juan, but there is one other thing. You know, as a currently serving and deployed member of the military, there's always months of notice before a permanent change of station or anything like that. At least several months' notice. And so, to me, as a member of the military, I don't really see the need for this because there's always enough notice that if the party that is changing location, they could fill out. We could get them licensed, you know, in plenty of time before they're here. So, you know, that just a thought there. I agree with you that we, should just watch it and work with the author. But just thinking about, like, is there really a need here for this? I don't really think so. But like you said, bad optics to oppose it.
Yeah, and then they have a lot of work to get this through the various committees and everything else, and it doesn't seem like a super high priority that's going to catch a lot of attention, especially as the president is tending to shut down some of our overseas issues. So yeah, I think we should probably just watch it, because I think your observations, Jed, are correct that it could be problematic. Okay, more comments, anybody?
This is Will McGuire. Just one other option, and maybe it's not appropriate at this time, but to consider for this in future bills is kind of the flip side of oppose unless amended is support if amended. Puts a little more positive spin on it, and you can kind of say you support the bill, but you have these, you really want this amendment. Sounds like what we're kind of trying to talk about is more of an informal version of that. Just an option is a support if amended position.
Okay. Well, any other comments on the merits of this before we make a decision on whether to watch or do something else? Okay, hearing none, it looks like
I'm sorry, Juan, I was a little slow on the click there. Just thinking that, and maybe Will or Karen could comment on this, but if this bill does pass, we would have to draft regulations for how to implement this. So you'd be looking at some time and expense to do that as well.
Right. Yeah, I think that's our big concern, as Will raised. It's a whole new reg framework we'd have to deal with. So hopefully, well, we'll just see where this bill goes. Does anybody have any objection to leaving the watch status and asking staff to reach out to the author?
Juan, I don't think we've taken a position on this bill. If I'm
sorry.
Correct.
You're right. That's simply a staff recommendation.
So I'll make a motion that we watch the bill and direct board staff to contact the author and recommend that they make amendments to allow us to require the applicant to disclose knowledge of any pending investigation or complaints.
I second. This is Sonia Early.
Thank you, Sonia. Madam Moderator, would you please open the public comment period channel?
This is the moderator, and at the direction of the board, I have opened the Q&A feature. If you would like to request public comment, please click on the question mark within the square located in the lower right-hand portion of your screen and type "I would like to comment." All commenters will be provided 3 minutes and given a 30-second warning. I will pause momentarily to allow individuals time to access this feature. At this time, we have not received any requests. Would you like me to close this feature?
Please close it. Thank you.
You're welcome. Feature has been closed.
Okay, Ms. Gompers, would you please call the vote on the motion?
She might be having some technical difficulties. I can call a vote.
Can you
Please
guys hear
do.
me?
She's back.
Here we go.
Okay.
Sorry
All
about
right.
that. Okay. Charles Alexander,
Aye.
Juan Armenta,
Aye.
Jennifer Carlquist,
Put that back and get out.
should I move on?
Yeah, let's give her time to come back in. It looks like she's off the list, so go ahead.
Okay. Sonia Early,
Aye.
Jed Grant,
Aye.
Diego Nzinza,
Aye.
then we were just waiting on Jennifer Carlquist.
No, you
Motion-
actually, you unmuted me, so it said only the host could unmute, so I.
Oh, perfect. Thank you.
There we go. Okay. I think that completes the roll, correct,
Yes.
Ms. Gompers? Okay, great.
Yes, that completes it.
Okay, so the motion carries by unanimous vote. Excellent. Ms. Dillon, can we move on to the next statute, or bill, rather?
Yes, so moving on to AB 646, the bill regarding expunged convictions. This bill is currently located in the Assembly Committee on Business and Professions. And this bill would require programs under DCA that post information on its website about a revoked license due to a criminal conviction to post notification of an expungement within 90 days of the board receiving an expungement order related to the conviction for those who reapply for licensure or are relicensed. Additionally, the bill would require boards on receiving an expungement order to remove the initial posting on its website that the person's license was revoked and information regarding arrests, charges, and convictions if the person is not currently licensed and does not reapply for licensure. So this bill was designed to reduce employment barriers for those people with previous criminal records who have been rehabilitated and whose conviction has been dismissed or expunged through the judicial process. There is already a process in place for licensees to establish that they are rehabilitated through a petition for reinstatement of a revoked license with the board. It is through this process the board can separately make a determination if a licensee is rehabilitated, since the court system may have different criteria than the board. The licensee's expungement is taken into consideration at this time, and the board's disciplinary action, which is separate from the court's action, can be reconsidered. However, there is no process in place where the licensee's disciplinary documents are removed. Although the revocation imposed by the board resulted from a conviction, it is a distinct action on the license unrelated to the licensee's criminal record. The purpose of having a licensee's disciplinary actions on the board's website is to allow the consumer to see the nature of the violation so they can make an informed decision when choosing their provider. The board may see some minor increases in revenue if this bill passes, as individuals seek expungement and apply for the removal of disciplinary documents or posting of the expungement. The web posting and removal of documents would fall under the board's regular pro rata towards DCA, Office of Information Services, and would be minor and absorbable. So any questions, concerns, comments on AB 646?
Jasmine, can you tell us, I know the board's criteria is different, but an expungement isn't necessarily a finding of factual innocence, of course, nor is it necessarily compatible with our petition for rehabilitation. It simply can be as low as completing the terms of whatever probation may have been imposed. And then I think that entitles one to go back and seek expungement, except for certain offenses. Is that the framework?
I believe so. I'm not sure. Maybe Will can chime in on this legal question.
I'm sorry for the disruption. I don't know that I can answer that question right offhand, but more importantly, I'm noticing that there's kind of a discrepancy with the bills that are listed on our agenda versus the bills that appear on the agenda within the combined materials. So as I recall, that it was maybe a couple of these items, these bills such as AB 646, which we're talking about now, appear in the meeting materials, but they do not appear on the original agenda. And by original, I mean the one that's posted right now to our website. So unfortunately, to the extent that the ones...
It is there, Will. 646.
Oh, unless I must be... Okay, I apologize. I must be looking at an old version that's saved in my desktop. Give me one moment here and let me just confirm that's the case. Sorry for the disruption again. Yes, okay, it did appear you updated it. I was looking at an old version, so I apologize. So if you could you please just repeat the original question you asked me so I can turn my attention to that? I was focused on something else.
Yeah, my question was, the expungement process can be pretty perfunctory for some violations. It can be simply completion of probation, and then it's form driven. You just file in your expungement paperwork, and if you completed satisfactorily all the terms of probation for the underlying criminal offense, that's all you have to do. There's no finding of rehabilitation itself. There's no finding of factual innocence. I just wanted to make sure my understanding of the framework of that is correct.
Not being a criminal law expert, it's not my area of expertise. It is my general understanding how you described President Armenta. There's not I don't believe there's a process of providing evidence of rehabilitation similar to what's contained in our regulations.
Okay. I don't anticipate that this would actually come up a great deal with great frequency to us. Does anybody have any thoughts on that? Okay, well, it seems like the recommendation from staff is to watch. Anybody have any objections to a watch, or would somebody like to make a motion to watch this particular bill?
President Armenta, I was just kind of wondering what Jed's thoughts on this bill was. Sonia and I were talking about it and wondering if this will affect down the line any discipline actions that, if we had to take any, would we be able to access the information, or would it limit us in any way?
So Thanks, Jen. I think that what this bill is asking us to do is to take documents off of the website if someone has their prior conviction expunged. It doesn't really, if I understand it correctly, change any of our processes in terms of application for relicensure and anything like that. It just says we have to remove the old documents from the website. We would still have access to them. So for
Okay.
me, if my understanding is correct, I have no problem with this bill. And, you know, I don't particularly even think that this is just my opinion, that we need to take any position on it. I think it's fine. Either way. To me, a position of watch means that, you know, maybe we have some concern or interest in the bill. But I think it's fine if my understanding of it is correct. And, you know, Will or Juan, correct me if my understanding is wrong. But I think all it is just taking things off the website, which I don't have any issue with.
That is what it seems. I'm just wondering if the author's goal is not to somehow, you know, erase the administrative discipline that we have potentially imposed on one of these people. I mean, certainly they're not asking us to immediately reinstate those people, but I wonder if that is kind of what they're driving at, or they're just literally want you know, they don't want something posted on a public website, which further, you know, evidences that person's previous conviction. If it's not on our website and they're not licensed, then there's probably not a big harm in removing that.
So Will, if I may, it seems like the context in which this would come up is let's say we took somebody's license away because of an underlying criminal conviction of moral turpitude, fraud or something. And then they went ahead and completed their terms of probation, whether that included incarceration or fines or whatever. They paid all the restitution, everything. Now they go to court and say expunge it. Court grants the expungement order. Then all we would have to do on our website is to remove the entry that said, hey, the license was revoked based on a criminal conviction. That just goes away. We would still have internally, I think, still have the data.
Yes, of course. That's what I was kind of alluding to. So I'm just kind of wondering a little bit more about the author's intent, because it also doesn't mention here, it says revoked, that's who it applies to, someone whose license was revoked. Now, our language that we use, and every board's language, when you're putting someone on probation, say, is the license is revoked, which is stayed for a period of X amount of years of probation. So I would like to know if the author's office is intending to actually affect those whose licenses are revoked and then stayed and then placed on probation, or literally just revoked, period. See what I mean?
Will, I think when we have criminal convictions, we don't usually. Well, actually, we do. Never mind. Yeah, I'm thinking of like a DUI, and we would put someone's license on probation for a DUI, and they get that expunged. Then all of that would sort of go away. I see what you're saying.
Yeah, it would be good to get some clarity from the author's office, if just to be maybe more precise in their language when they're talking about revoked. Simply because what could happen if this law passes and we go about our normal practices. Someone comes and says, hey, you put my license on probation and I need you to take this down off your website. Well, if that person's still practicing, the public has an interest in seeing that they're practicing under probation.
Just a comment. My recollection is that driving convictions for drugs or alcohol or that type of stuff, I don't think they can ever be expunged. Those are one of the exceptions. There's some stuff you can't expunge. I may be incorrect, but I'm pretty sure that was the case. It's been a long time since I did criminal law. Well, does this sound like something we should direct staff to reach out and clarify? Is that kind of what I'm hearing, Will?
That was one question I would have for staff of the boards, not board staff, excuse me, for legislative staff. So yeah, that may be just to direct staff to work with the author's office to express our concerns and seek clarity on to whom this bill is meant to apply. We could explain the issue about revocation with an immediate stay of that revocation and implementation of probation. And I'd be happy to work with Jasmine or whoever else in reaching out to the author's office on that.
Okay, would somebody care to make that motion if there's no further comments on this bill?
I'll make the motion that we take a watch position and direct staff to draft a letter to the author's office with the concerns as mentioned by Mr. McGuire.
I'll second that, Jed.
Jed, would you be all right with us reaching out via phone or letter, whichever we determine is easiest to do?
Sure, yeah, that would be, it doesn't have to be a letter, but we should definitely clarify it.
Okay, as modified, the second stands.
The second stands.
Okay, very well, Madam Moderator, could you please open the public channel?
This is the moderator, and at the direction of the board, I have opened the Q&A panel. If you would like to request public comment for your display, are the instructions on your screen. Please click on the question mark in the lower right-hand portion of your screen and type, "I would like to make a comment." All commenters will receive 3 minutes and be given a 30-second warning. I will now pause momentarily to allow individuals time to access this feature. At this time, we have not received any requests for public comment. Would you like me to close this feature?
Yes, please close it.
Feature has been closed.
Thank you. Okay, so Ms. Gompers, would you please call the vote on the motion?
All right. Charles Alexander,
Aye.
Juan Armenta,
Aye.
Jennifer Carlquist,
Aye.
Sonia Early,
Aye.
Jed Grant,
Aye.
Diego Nzunza.
Aye.
All right, that completes it.
Very well, by unanimous vote, that the motion carries. So we are at 12:03. I will put it to the board and any other comments. We need 4 more bill analysis, then the agenda item, and then closed session. Do we want to break for lunch or do we want to carry on and finish?
I'd like to carry
I
on,
just,
Board President. This is Sonia Early.
I'll second that, please.
Okay, I think the person under the most time compression would be Jed, so I'll just ask one more time. Any objections to us proceeding and through the agenda since we're near the end? Very well, we will go ahead and carry on. I'm sure Jed appreciates that given his time lag. So Ms. Dillon, it looks like the next one up is AB 339.
Yes. So moving on to AB 339 regarding open meetings. This bill is located in the Assembly Committee on Local Government. And and would require legislative bodies of local agencies to make available instructions on joining the meeting to all non-English speaking persons upon request and publish the instructions in the two most spoken languages other than English within the local agency's jurisdiction. However, this bill was actually amended on May 4th, 2021, and so it no longer applies to boards and bureaus, but instead applies to City Council and County Board of Supervisors meetings that govern a jurisdiction of at least 250,000 people. So I did confirm that this bill no longer applies to the Physician Assistant Board.
So it would seem that we could amend our, well, is the staff recommendation still to oppose in light of that development, or do we even care?
No, I don't think we need to oppose the bill since it no longer is applicable to us. So,
Okay, well, then it would seem, since it doesn't apply to us, that we have no interest, and we should probably withdraw our opposition. Will, what form does that take? Do we just change our position to what? No comment, no position at all?
Yeah, I think the motion would be to amend the board's official position from opposed to neutral and direct staff to continue monitoring or to cease monitoring.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but I don't think we've taken a position on this bill.
Oh, I see. So is that not the case?
Yeah, Jed, you're absolutely right. I see staff recommendation and I jumped to the conclusion that we already opposed it. So it seems then that we simply would vote to take no position on it. Or do we even need to do that, Will? Or can we just ignore it?
I would say if we have no position on the bill, then we don't need a vote to continue with no position on the bill.
Okay. So let me open it up for comments from the board members. Does anybody see any reason in light of what Ms. Dillon has told us to take any position on this bill? All right, hearing none, I think we will just leave that bill alone, and there's nothing else we need to do, correct, Will?
Well, staff may wish to, this can be just an informal direction from me to staff, but just keep an eye on this bill to make sure that somehow we're not amended back into it sometime down the line. And then we may just wish to take public comment just to be safe as well.
Okay, sage advice. So it seems, and let me just ask, I'll put it out there again, following Will's advice, it seems like the direction will be to staff just to keep an eye on this. So somehow by amendment, we don't get included back in. Is there any opposition to that position? Very well, hearing none. Madam Moderator, please open the public channel briefly for any comments.
This is the moderator, and at the direction of the board, I have open for public comment. If you would like to request public comment, please click on the question mark within the square located in the lower right-hand portion of your screen and type "I would like to make a comment." All comments will be addressed in the order they are received, and I will now pause momentarily to allow individuals time to access this feature. At this time, we have not received any requests. Would you like me to close this feature?
Please, thank you.
You're welcome. Feature's closed.
All right, very well. That'll be the instruction to staff then, just to keep an eye on this to make sure we don't get amended back into it. And it looks like, Ms. Dillon, we're up to Senate Bill 731.
all right. So Senate Bill 731 is regarding criminal records relief. This bill is located in the Senate Committee on Appropriations and was introduced on February 19th, 2021. This bill would expand upon recent criminal justice reforms by creating further mechanisms for conviction dismissal. So currently, Under existing law, a person is eligible for arrest record relief if they were arrested on or after January 1st, 2021, and the arrest was for a misdemeanor and the charge was dismissed, or criminal proceedings have not been initiated within 1 year after the arrest, or the arrest was for a felony punishable in the county jail and criminal proceedings have not been initiated within 3 years after the date of the arrest. Also, under existing law, a person is eligible for automatic conviction record relief if on or after January 1st, 2021, they were sentenced to probation and completed it without revocation, or if they were convicted of an infraction or a misdemeanor and other criteria are met. This bill would expand on the provisions of AB 1076, which restricted the criminal conviction information supplied to boards in specific circumstances by further limiting the conviction information that boards will receive and be allowed to utilize, including for persons who were convicted of a felony any time after January 1st, 1973, sentenced to state prison, and completed their sentence. Felony conviction records would be automatically sealed for individuals who have completed their sentence and have gone 2 years without new criminal convictions. AB 1076 created a new process for the automatic arrest record relief for people arrested for a misdemeanor or for a jail felony when the charges were dismissed or enough time had passed that it is clear there is not intent for criminal proceedings to go forward. This bill would expand those eligible for relief to those arrested for any felony, not just those for which the sentence is county jail. If the felony sentence can be more than 8 years, relief shall not be granted until 6 years have passed. Otherwise, relief may be granted after 3 years have passed. So this bill, the purpose of this bill is to permit additional relief by way of withdrawing a plea and deleting arrest records for the purpose of most criminal background checks. This bill would have an impact on the Physician Assistant Board's licensing and enforcement programs, and it would hinder the board's ability to carry out its legislative mandate of consumer protection. Currently, the board completes an enforcement review for every applicant with a criminal history, determines whether the crimes committed are substantially related to the duties of licensure. This bill could significantly diminish the board's ability to make these determinations without access to the necessary arrest or conviction information, unless an exception to allow access to records granted relief is made for state licensing boards. So, the staff is suggesting a watch position, but if anyone has any questions, concerns, or comments, please go ahead.
Mr. President, may I be heard?
Please, Mr. Grant.
I'm pretty opposed to this. I mean, you know, I think any felony is just way too broad. There's lots of felony convictions that I think are substantially related to PA practice that we need to know about, and that we, I think the purpose of the board is to decide whether or not their felony conviction is related to practice and whether or not they're a risk to the public. If we don't have that information, we really can't do our job. So, personally, I'm pretty opposed to this because if this passes, if I understand correctly, it's all felonies, which, someone could have done all sorts of bad things, and I don't think I would want them providing health care to my family without someone having vetted them to make sure that they're not a risk to the public safety. So I think this is just a really bad idea for the healing arts boards, especially.
I tend to agree. There's so many felonies that cross over into the exact areas that we supervise. I mean, do we really want a felon convicted of, take your pick, stealing drugs out of the pharmacy unit of a hospital because they had access as a PA and selling them for profit? I mean, that type of scenario to me would really have a problem with that person's, especially if they're an adult, went through the education of how do you consider that person rehabilitated? I mean, I'm sure certain circumstances you could, but if we don't have that information, we don't even know where to begin the inquiry. So I think that maybe, I mean, my personal belief would be to oppose this. It sounds like, Jed, you're on the same page.
That's correct. I'm opposed to, I think we should oppose this because it really hinders us in accomplishing our mission.
Any other comments?
I would agree. I think we talked about this, Jennifer and I, and we had the same reservations, but we were hoping to see if they had some more writing, or we could maybe talk with the author to see if the PA boards or other boards got special dispensation to get some type of information. And so that was our question.
So we could make a motion that said, you know, we're opposed unless amended that the healing arts boards are accepted.
Any other comments? Mr. Grant, I understand you'd like to make a motion.
That's correct. I'll motion that the physician assistant board take an opposed unless amended position on the bill, and that we direct staff to work with the author and let them know that we would be opposed unless the healing arts boards are exempted from the bill's requirements.
Is there a second?
I would second.
That. Go ahead, Sonia.
Thanks, either or.
Okay, so we have the second recorded from Vice President Early. So, Madam Moderator, would you please open the public comment channel?
This is the moderator, and at the direction of the board, I have opened the Q&A panel. For your reference, being displayed on your screen are instructions to request public comment. I will pause momentarily to allow individuals time to access this feature. At this time, we have not received any requests. Would you like me to close this feature?
Please, thank you.
You're welcome. Feature has been closed.
And Ms. Gompers, could you call the vote on the motion?
Yep. Charles Alexander,
Aye.
Juan Armenta,
Aye.
Jennifer Carlquist,
Aye.
Sonia Early,
Aye.
Jed Grant,
Aye.
Diego Nzunza.
Aye.
And that concludes it.
Thank you. The motion carries unanimously, so staff will be so directed. Okay, moving right along to, it looks like Senate Bill 806. Is that right, Ms. Dillon?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay, please proceed.
SB 806. So this is actually the Physician Assistant Board Sunset Bill. It is currently located in the Senate Committee on Appropriations. Existing law, the Physician Assistant Practice Act, provides for the licensure and regulation of physician assistants by the Physician Assistant Board, which is within the jurisdiction of the Medical Board of California. The Act provides that the board shall require physician assistants to take and pass a written examination for licensure. The Act provides that the board may make arrangements for the examination to be administered under a uniform examination system. The Act, however, requires the board to establish a passing score and time and place for each examination. This bill would remove the requirement that the board establish a passing score and time and place for each examination, since the current examination is administered by the National Commission on Certification of Physician Assistants, otherwise known as NCCPA, a private organization. Staff will work with the Business and Professions Committee as the bill moves through the legislative process. So currently I am working with Sarah Mason from the Business and Professions Committee to work on adding any additional edits to the code sections that are applicable in order to remove us from medical board's jurisdiction, and in addition to the other suggestions that were included that I discussed with Rosanna. So if anyone has any questions, concerns, or comments, please go ahead.
Well, it seems that the staff recommendation is to support. And is there anybody that has any objection to taking that position?
President Armenta, I'll make a motion to take a position of support on the bill.
A second, please. Is there?
I'll second. This is PA Early.
Excellent. So motion made and seconded. Madam Moderator, please open the public channel for comment.
This is the moderator, and at the direction of the board, I have opened the Q&A panel. If you would like to request public comment, for your reference, being displayed on the screen are instructions to request public comment. You will be provided 3 minutes and given a 30-second warning. With that, I will pause momentarily to allow individuals time to access this feature. At this time, we have not received any requests for public comment. Would you like me to close this feature?
Yes, please close it.
Feature has been closed.
Great, thank you. Ms. Gompers, would you please call the vote on the motion?
Charles Alexander,
Aye.
Juan Armenta,
Aye.
Jennifer Carlquist,
Aye. Aye.
I'm sorry, did we complete the vote?
I don't think my name was called, but I would say aye. This is Sonia Early.
Oh, I called you. Sorry about that. Jed Grant,
Aye.
Diego Nzunza.
Aye.
That concludes it.
Very well, the motion carries by unanimous vote. Staff will take the appropriate action. And I think our last bill is Assembly Bill 562. Is that correct, Ms. Dillon?
Yes, that is correct. So
Please let us know what you think.
okay, so AB 562 is in regards to the Frontline COVID-19 Provider Mental Health Resiliency Act of 2021. This bill is relatively new. It was introduced on February 11th and is located in the Assembly Committee on Appropriations. This bill would establish the Frontline COVID-19 Provider Mental Health Resiliency Act of 2021, which would require the Department of Consumer Affairs to establish a mental health resiliency program until January 1st of 2025 in consultation with relevant health arts boards, which are defined under the amendments in the bill. Under the program, the DCA would contract with one or more vendors of mental health services as defined for the duration of the program. The individual boards would then administer the program and determine eligibility. The goal of this bill is to help healthcare workers to want to remain on the front lines by providing targeted services more immediately and directly available that can help improve resiliency. A frontline COVID-19 healthcare provider is a person who provides or has provided consistent in-person healthcare services to patients with COVID-19. By going through the licensing boards, the bill seeks to help providers who do not have adequate employer-sponsored plans or employee assistance programs, have prohibitively high deductibles, and are not ready to establish with a mental health provider, experience delays in finding a provider, or are no longer employed due to early retirement or other change in employment. Because the goal of this bill is to make services available as soon as possible, it is not structured in a way that would require supervision or monitoring, nor require the development of a comprehensive program. Rather, the goal would be to contract with prepackaged vendors. The bill currently does not have a funding source and would therefore, the costs of the program would be paid from the participating board's special funds. To the extent that the new costs are not absorbable, the bill as drafted may create the need for license and/or regulatory fee increases. The author notes that the funding mechanisms are currently being explored and is committed to ensuring fee increases are not triggered. If there is no outside source of funding, or if the costs of the program are not absorbable, the author is willing to amend the bill to narrow the bill, including reducing the scope of services. And the staff recommendation is to take a watch position on this bill, as it is relatively new and may be amended in the near future.
Well, I can say I'm bothered by any bill that doesn't lay out a funding source and looks to shift that funding to us without a clear outline. So it's certainly, at minimum, we need to watch it to see how that goes, and at least the author is willing to amend it. But that alone makes it hugely problematic to me. So maybe that just speaks to the how new the bill is. But I think that needs to be fixed, and watching it is, I think, the minimum we should do at this point. Anybody have any other comments?
I agree. I think we should watch it and see what happens in terms of the funding. This could be really, really expensive. So I think just watch is good right now.
Any other comments? All right, would anybody like to make a, would anybody like to make a motion to watch this and direct staff to keep an eye on it, particularly with respect to funding?
I'll make the motion as you stated.
Thank you, Mr. Grant. A second, please.
I'll second if there's no others. Thanks.
Thank you, Vice President Early. Madam Moderator, could you open the public channel?
This is the moderator, and at the direction of the board, I have opened the Q&A panel. If you would like to request public comment, please click on the question mark within the square located in the lower right portion of your screen and type "I would like to make comment." All comments will be addressed in the order they are received. You will be provided 3 minutes and given a 30-second warning. I will pause momentarily to allow individuals time to access this feature. At this time, no requests have been received. Would you like me to close this feature?
Yes, please. Thank you.
You're welcome. Feature has been closed.
All right, very well. Ms. Dillon, thank you for your report. I assume that concludes your report. Is that right?
Yes, that concludes my report. Thank you so much.
Okay, so great debut. I think everybody would agree. So thank you for your help. Again, welcome aboard. And let's take a look at.
Mr. President, may I have a chance to say something?
Absolutely. Please, Dr. Alexander.
Okay, thank you so much. I would hope that the legislative committee would look at two pending legislations that are going on right now, SB 395 and AB 1306. These bills are to support health career opportunity programs, which, being a member of the Education Committee, I would hope we would support these particular bills. One would authorize the program, the other would provide funding for the program, would support students who are from underrepresented background, low-income backgrounds to pursue and support their education through these particular programs, the Health Career Opportunity Program. So I would just ask that the Legislative Committee look at these two bills. They're moving pretty quickly. I don't know if we're going to have a chance to say anything about them by the time they come. We have another meeting, but I would ask that they do look at the bill and that the board consider supporting them.
Could you restate them, please?
Yes, SB 395 and AB 1306. 395 is Caballero, Ana Caballero, Senator Abba Caballero, and Assemblyman Joaquin Arambula with 1306.
Okay, great. Thank you, Dr. Alexander, for keeping an eye out on legislation that may be of interest to the board. And hopefully the legislative committee can look at those and report back. So moving to item number 14, agenda items for the next meeting. Will, I presume that here I am taking inquiry if there are any other agenda items that we would like to add. Is that correct?
That's correct, from board members or staff or members of the public.
I see. So let's start with board members. Are there any, Dr. Alexander just gave us some items to take note of. Are there any other items that board members would suggest be placed on the agenda for the next meeting? Hearing none, I will ask now staff. Does staff have any suggestion for expansion of the agenda for the next meeting? Hearing none, Madam Moderator, would you please open the public channel to see if any members of the public have any suggestions for agenda items for the next meeting?
This is the moderator, and at the direction of the board, I have opened the Q&A panel. For your reference, being displayed on your screen are instructions to request public comment. All comments received will be addressed in the order they are received. You will be provided 3 minutes and given a 30-second warning. I will pause momentarily to allow individuals time to access this feature. At this time, we have not received any requests for public comment. Would you like me to close this feature?
Yes, please. Thank you, Madam Moderator.
You're very welcome. Feature has been closed.
I'm noticing that member Carlquist has her hand up. Is that old? Jen, can we ignore that, or did you have another comment?
Yeah, that was old.
Okay, great. Just wanted to make sure we didn't miss anything you might have to say. Okay, so at this point, we're going to item 15, which is the closed section. So pursuant to the Government Code, section 11126C3, this will be, of course, a closed session. And following that closed section, we will adjourn the meeting, and the adjournment will not be broadcast. No other items of business will be discussed post-adjournment nor post-closed session. So this will conclude the public broadcast of this. And Will, is there anything else we need to do before we move into closed session?
No, there's not. Thank you very much.
Okay, excellent. Madam Moderator, we thank all the attendees, the board, staff members, welcoming, of course, Jasmine and Margarita to their new positions. So thank you so much. Thank you for the attendees who have attended and been patient with us. And at this point, we will move into closed session. So Madam Moderator, please make those adjustments.
This is the moderator at the